Chapter 1094. Boom! The two repulsive forces that had been squeezed to the limit let out a series of loud explosions, as if igniting the air and tearing the space apart. Then a dazzling light flashed, illuminating everything. In an instant, Nagato and Otsutsuki Samurai were blown far away by an irresistible repulsive force at the same time. Not only that, even the powerful Outer Tao demon statue and the Ancestor Stone statue were blown away by this repulsive force. In the blink of an eye, the whole battlefield seemed to have been cleared. The blue sky became spotless. Not a mention smoke, not even a single cloud could be seen. The ground had also become a flat wasteland. Although it was a mess, there were no ups and downs. It was as if a pair of large hands had flattened everything. Cough, cough. Half squatting on the ground, Nagato coughed up blood rapidly. It was a big burden for him to continuously use Shinra Tensei with all his strength, not to mention that he would suffer a violent recoil after each round of confrontation. After calming his breath, Nagato looked at Otsutsuki Samurai in the distance. Like him, Otsutsuki Samurai also fell hard on the ground. His gorgeous robe was full of stains, his chest was heaving up and down, and his mouth was gasping for breath. Seeing that his opponent was pale, but didn't cough up blood like him, Nagato's face darkened. He realized that it would be difficult for him to win if he continued to compete with chakra, so he stood up slowly. "You're really unimaginably powerful, but this time I won't be defeated by you like before." After saying that, Nagato closed his eyes and then suddenly opened them, launching the strongest pupil technique of his samsara eyes, Samsara border prison. Defeated by me, Otsutsuki Samurai, who floated up from the ground, was startled and confused. Bang! But before he could sort out his thoughts, a muffled sound rang out, and his abdomen suffered a heavy blow. Soon after, his entire body curled up like a prawn, and he was fiercely sent flying. "Oh, what's going on?" Otsutsuki Samurai, who was sent flying, vomited blood and was in a daze. He almost threw up his breakfast. Obviously, without the reincarnation eye, the Tenseigan eye, and the immortal arts, he couldn't detect the traces of Nagato's tomb clone at all, so he was confused after being hit. Nagato's expression turned cold as he roared. "Are you still not going to use your ocular sorcery? Otsutsuki Samurai, there's a limit to looking down on me." After roaring, he once again urged the four Luin tomb clones to charge at Otsutsuki Samurai. At the same time, he stretched out his hand towards the ancestral stone statue that Otsutsuki Samurai had summoned. Would release, would dragon technique. Walala. In an instant, countless vines and tree stumps rose from the ground and converged into a thick wooden dragon, firmly entangling the ancestor stone statue that the Otsutsuki clan sacrifice spirit channeling had created. The Outer Path demon statue took the opportunity to take a step forward. As the earth shook, it punched the ancestral stone statue that was entangled by the wooden dragon. After the Outer Path demon statue punched, the head of the ancestral stone statue was hit and flew out like a stone ball, drawing an arc in the air and then smashing into the distant forest. Looking at the crazy Nagato, Otsutsuki Samurai, who had climbed up from the ground, was dumbfounded. Outside the battlefield, boom! Looking at the stone statue's head that was falling from the sky and almost hitting his head, Sasuke subconsciously raised his arms to block the flying stone fragments. He secretly swallowed his saliva. Soon, he retracted his gaze and turned his attention to the battlefield. He looked at Otsutsuki Samurai, who was dressed in luxurious clothes. Is he the leader of Amitsukami, Yama? Is that the Byakugan? Why is it the Byakugan? Like Sasuke, the rest of the team, including Jishuei, were also staring at the battlefield attentively. Due to the repulsive force, the smoke and dust on the battlefield were almost swept away. Therefore, the center of the battlefield was extremely open and unobstructed. On the other side, after the shock wave subsided, the Kages and Tsunade immediately came out of the deep pit. After glancing at the situation on the battlefield, the three generations, Tsuchikage frowned and said softly, "Huh? Why does the leader of Amitsukami seem to be at a disadvantage?" The other Kages and Tsunade also noticed this, and their faces showed a surprised expression. In the past, although the leader of Amatsukami had never completely defeated Nagato, almost every time they fought, the leader of Amatsukami had the upper hand. Therefore, when the leader of Amatsukami made a move, they instinctively felt that the situation was under control and that things would not develop in a bad direction. However, the situation on the battlefield was not like that. So, their hearts that had just calmed down became anxious again. Under the leadership of Jiraiya, the group of elite ninjas who came from the direction of Konoha village also arrived at the edge of the battlefield one after another and consciously stopped to observe the situation. Is that white-haired boy the leader of Amatsukami? He's younger than I thought. I heard that he is from the same clan as the legendary sage of Six Paths. For a while, the ninjas who were looking at the battlefield discussed among themselves. Everyone had heard about the leader of Amatsukami many times, but they had never seen him in person. This time, they were both excited and surprised to see the leader of Amatsukami in person. This was because Otsutsuki Samurai looked like he was only 16 or 17 years old, which was much younger than they thought. However, considering that he was from the Otsutsuki clan, perhaps he only looked young, but in fact he was not that young. Fukasaku Sage, who was on Jiraiya's shoulder, was puzzled and said, "The situation is not good." Shima Sage also frowned and said, "Yes, why is Otsutsuki Samurai at a disadvantage? Can it be that even he can't defeat Nagato?" Jiraiya said with a worried look, "Oh no, maybe Nagato's strength has increased, and the leader of Amatsukami can't suppress him anymore." Shinichi, who had arrived first, had a strange expression on his face when he heard the conversation between Jiraiya and the two-toed sages. He knew better than anyone who the leader of Amatsukami was. So when he arrived at the edge of the battlefield and saw that the person who was fighting with Nagato was Otsutsuki Samurai, who was mistaken by the public as the leader of Amatsukami, he immediately understood that this was a trap set up by Hyojin. Boss is getting more and more cunning. Halfway through his whisper, Shinichi quickly looked around and saw that no one was paying attention to him. He breathed a sigh of relief and then said to himself, "I can't believe I was worried about the safety of such a cunning boss. I'm really too kind. Due to the epidemic, my control is getting stricter and stricter. I'm in a bad mood, and my mind is a little messed up. Plus, it's the climax recently, so I don't want to be half-hearted. So, I only had one watch yesterday. I hope everyone can understand. Today, I'll try to return to the normal 2 watches." Chapter 1095. Konan, who was in the air, was also paying attention to the battle at this moment. When she found that Nagato had the upper hand, she was overjoyed and said to herself, "As long as I defeat Otsutsuki Samurai, I won't have to worry about anything." For a long time, Amatsukami has been the biggest worry in her heart. She used hundreds of billions of detonation talismans to deal with Obsidian in this decisive battle. She wanted to exhaust Amatsukami's strength as much as possible and provide help to Nagato in this decisive battle. Now that Nagato has the upper hand, everything seems to be settled. On the other side, Itachi, who was hiding in the shadows, quietly watched the battlefield. His face under the mask was calm. He vaguely felt that something was wrong before, but when he found out that the one fighting with Nagato was not Hyojin, but Otsutsuki Samurai, who was mistakenly known as the leader of Amatsukami, he immediately realized. Senpai should be nearby. Having understood everything, he suppressed the urge to attack and became even more cautious. Because from the current situation, it seems that Otsutsuki Samurai, who is said to be from the same clan as Sage of Six Paths, is not a match for Nagato, the leader of Akatsuki. On the battlefield, although Otsutsuki Samurai couldn't use Byakugan to see through Nagato's reincarnation clone, he was not stupid. He immediately realized that Nagato used some kind of pupil technique to avoid his insight. So, he immediately drew the Tenseigan chakra from the giant Tenseigan on the moon and poured it on his arms, making his arms almost in the Tenseigan chakra mode state. Then, he quickly adjusted his body and stretched out his palms toward Nagato. In an instant, Two light blue Tenseigan chakra arms quickly stretched out and hit Nagato. Not only that, when the Tenseigan chakra arms hit Nagato, the palms of the arms also shot Tenseigan chakra light at Nagato. Shio, shio, shio. Amidst the ear-piercing whistling sound, Tenseigan chakra light clusters flashed and hit Nagato in an instant. Nagato raised his arms and used Shinra Tensei to block or repel the oncoming Tenseigan chakra orbs while shouting, "Are you finally getting serious?" Soon, two pale green Tenseigan chakra arms chased Nagato like a shadow and finally reached into Nagato's body. Otsutsuki Samurai's eyes turned cold at this time, and he immediately urged the giant Tenseigan on the moon to extract chakra from Nagato. Almost instantly, the two pale green Tenseigan chakra arms that stretched into Nagato's body pulled a large mass of chakra visible to the naked eye out of Nagato's body. Nagato was also taken aback because in the past few battles with Hyojin had never used this ability, so he was completely unprepared for it. But soon he recovered and launched the Rinnegan's ability to absorb chakra. Under the effect of the Rinnegan's pupil power, the two huge masses of chakra that had just been pulled out of Nagato's body were absorbed back by an invisible force. So, both sides launched the ability to absorb chakra at the same time and launched a strange tug of war. Periphery. Looking at this strange scene in the field, the four generations of Kazekage asked with some confusion, "What are they doing? Are they devouring each other's chakra?" Tsunade gently nodded and said, "It looks a bit like nether release." The three generations Naruto, as a ninjutsu doctor, shook his head. "This is not nether release. Nether release has a limit to the absorption of chakra. It is impossible to extract such a huge amount of chakra at once." The three generations Tsuchikage echoed, "Well, this should be their respective special ability. Isn't there one in Nagato's 6 paths of pain that can absorb chakra?" The four generations Lei Ying's face was a little gloomy. Is this the way ninjas of their level fight? In the face of the four generations Lei Ying's question, although the people present were all experienced and knowledgeable, no one could give an answer. On the other side, seeing that Nagato and Otsutsuki Samurai were in a stalemate, Sasuke was suddenly moved and said, "This is a good opportunity for us to take action." Jisue shook her head. "Don't act recklessly. Yes, maybe we can kill the leaders of Amatsukami and Akatsuki at once." Dedeo rubbed his chin and grinned, but it seems that he has no intention of doing it himself. And listening to Dedeo's words, Sasuke was even more moved. If he can play a decisive role in the decisive battle between the leaders of Amatsukami and Akatsuki, then he will inevitably become famous in the shinobi world. And for Sasuke, who is eager to be recognized by his family, this is an irresistible temptation. Swish, Sasuke activated his Manjikyu Sharingan and rushed towards the field. Not expecting Sasuke to be so impulsive, Jisue quickly chased after him and said, "Come back quickly." Sasuke said confidently, "Don't worry, I won't get close to them." As soon as his voice fell, Kuroto stopped in a position with a good field of vision and activated Disregarding his limited Manjikyu Sharingan, he simultaneously activated Amaterasu and Earth Life Enhancement. In the blink of an eye, a purple Susanoo was projected from Sasuke's body and aimed at Nagato in the distance. Sasuke's action this time is not entirely impulsive, because he is very clear that if his Susanoo is combined with Amaterasu and Earth Life Enhancement, he can release a very powerful long-range attack. From a distance, he could take a gamble and ensure his own safety at the same time. In his opinion, it was very cost-effective and worth a try. Sasuke's action quickly attracted everyone's attention, especially his Homusubi outfit of Amatsukami, which attracted everyone's attention. Konan, who was in the air, was taken aback when she saw this, and without thinking, she waved her arms and controlled countless detonation talismans to rush towards Sasuke on the ground. Oh no! At the same time, Itachi, who was hiding in another place, saw Sasuke rushing out, and a trace of panic flashed on his originally calm face, and his heart seemed to be gripped by something. In the field, Nagato and Otsutsuki Tonari who were absorbing chakra from each other, also noticed Sasuke, who was wearing Amatsukumi's Homusubi costume, and their faces sank. Swish! At this moment, Sasuke's Sisa completed its aim and immediately shot an arrow wrapped in the black flame of Amaterasu. With a whistling momentum, it went straight towards Nagato. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1096. The Susanoo arrow wrapped in the black flames of Amaterasu flew straight towards the battlefield like a black hole, instantly attracting the attention of everyone inside and outside the battlefield. In fact, after seeing Nagato and Otsutsuki Samurai in a stalemate, Sasuke was not the only one who had the idea of making a move, including several Kage on the sidelines. Many strong ninjas also had the idea of taking this opportunity to launch a sneak attack. Because Otsutsuki Samurai is obviously at a disadvantage, and once Otsutsuki Samurai is defeated, then no one in the entire shinobi world can compete with Nagato. It's just that, except for Sasuke's team, almost all the other ninjas who can get close to this battlefield are experienced and seasoned ninjas. Even if they have some kind of idea, they will carefully weigh it first. In addition, other people don't have a powerful long-range attack ability like Sasuke, so they can't launch a sneak attack from a safe distance, so no one dares to act rashly. Therefore, although it is a bit reckless, but it does need someone to act boldly to test the waters, and Sasuke, who has long-range attack ability, happens to be the best candidate on the sidelines. 3 generations Naruto secretly thought, with the power of the Manjikyu Sharingan, he should be able to intervene in the battle. 4 generations Lei Ying's eyes turned cold. Is it the inextinguishable black flames of the Uchiha clan? Tsunade frowned slightly. The purple... Is it Sasuke? 3 generations Tsuchikage floated in the air, adjusted his position, and secretly condensed chakra. As long as Sasuke's long-range sneak attack works this time, he will immediately increase the attack and activate Dust Release to ensure that Nagato, the biggest threat in the shinobi world, is eliminated. Of course, if possible, it is best to accidentally injure the leader of Amatsukumi, Otsutsuki Samurai, and let this strong person who can rival Nagato disappear together with Nagato. Because of these reasons, when Sasuke jumped out of the crowd and displayed a powerful long-range attack, all the people who had the idea of attacking showed a look of expectation. Whoosh, in the harsh whistling sound, Sasuke's Susanoo arrow shot at an incredible speed towards Nagato, who was in a stalemate with Otsutsuki Samurai. And when he saw Nagato didn't respond and seemed to be helpless in the face of his arrow, Sasuke's mouth under the mask quickly curled up. No matter who you are, you can't ignore our powerful Uchiha clan. Today, Uchiha Sasuke, will end your legend. Boom! At this moment, the arrow that flew towards Nagato seemed to hit something and exploded inexplicably halfway. The black flame of Amaterasu wrapped around the arrow also drifted around and splashed all over the ground. Sasuke's expression suddenly froze, and he said in surprise, "What's going on?" He clearly aimed at Nagato, but the arrow did not hit the target. It exploded out of nowhere in the open space hundreds of meters away from Nagato, as if it had hit something solid. On the sidelines, Shinichi's face darkened. Jiraiya, who was frowning at the side, said doubtfully, "I always feel that there is something there." On Jiraiya's shoulder, the 2 immortals, Fukasaku and Shima, echoed, "Well, there really seems to be something there." Because of the distance, even in immortal mode, Jiraiya could not clearly perceive the 4 samurai clones of Nagato wandering in the field. He could only vaguely perceive their existence. On the other side, 4 generations Lei said, "Sure enough, the 3 generations of Tsuchikage floating in the air also slowly descended, dismissing the idea of continuing to attack. In the last fight, several Kages had seen Nagato's samurai prison, and because it was the first time they encountered it, they had no experience in dealing with it, so they were quickly defeated. Only the 3 generations of Tsuchikage escaped vigilantly, which was why they, as Kages, did not take the initiative to launch a sneak attack. Gotcha! Just as Sasuke was considering whether to release another arrow, his Susanoo was smashed by the samurai clones, and his whole body, together with the Tenseigan, was hit by a huge force and flew out. Boom, boom, boom. At the same time, the detonation talismans in the air, like raindrops, fell on Sasuke, who was flying in the air, making a series of explosions. Fortunately, with the protection of the broken Susanoo, Sasuke barely blocked the attack of this round of detonation talismans and fell to the ground in embarrassment. This Susanoo, protecting his body, also degenerated from the previous armor state to the most basic skeleton state. What's going on? Sasuke crawled up from the ground with a look of horror on his face. His pair of Manjikyu Sharingan darted around in his eye sockets, looking for the enemy he couldn't see. He couldn't imagine that his Manjikyu Sharingan couldn't see through an enemy. Bang! Before Sasuke could stabilize his mind, Nagato samurai clones once again punched his Susanoo, and he flew out together with the Susanoo. The power of samurai clones, even a tailed beast with rough skin and thick flesh could not resist. So after being hit for the second time, Sasuke's Susanoo was broken, and Sasuke's body was also hit and flew out. At this time, Jishui arrived in time, opened her Susanoo to cover Sasuke, who was seriously injured and vomiting blood, and with her rich experience, predicted the attack path of Nagato's samurai clones, and blocked the attack with the artifact Yada no Kagami in front of her. Boom! In a split second, Nagato's Luanmu doppelganger struck Jishui's divine artifact, Yada no Kagami mirror, causing a loud explosion. After that, both sides were sent flying by the huge shock, and Jishui took advantage of the counterforce to carry Sasuke, who was vomiting blood, back to the sidelines. What happened just now? Could it be a ghost? Damn it. If even a powerhouse like Fire Demon from God's organization can't interfere, then what's the point of us staying here? From a moment Sasuke launched a sneak attack to the point where he vomited blood and was rescued by Jishui, the entire process only took a few breaths. But it was also this small episode that shocked the ninjas on the sidelines. They didn't laugh at Sasuke, who was sent flying in an instant, but they were shocked that a strong ninja with Manjikyu Sharingan couldn't even intervene in the fight. At the same time, because Jishui used the artifact Yada no Kagami mirror to resist the attack of Nagato's Luanmu doppelganger in the huge counterforce, an illusory shadow was faintly reflected in the distorted air, making everyone clearly aware of the existence of a terrifying existence in the field that can't be seen by the naked eye, but can blow away Susanoo with a punch. And Sasuke, who was rescued by Jishui and brought back to the sidelines, vomited blood and asked, "Why did this happen?" The first update is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 1097. Looking at Sasuke's unwillingness in his eyes, Jishui shook his head and didn't answer Sasuke's doubts. Or rather, he couldn't answer Sasuke's doubts. Damn it! At this time, Sasuke struggled to get up from the ground and covered his head with his hands. In the previous battle, Kuroto had consumed a lot of his pupil power, and his eyesight has begun to deteriorate seriously. And just now, regardless of the consumption of his pupil power, he used Susanoo, Amaterasu, and Earth Life in succession. These three Manjikyu Sharingan level jutsu, so the blurriness of his vision has become even more serious. At this time, Kimimaro and Haku looked at each other and saw surprise and shock in each other's eyes. For Sasuke's attack, just now, although they felt that it was a bit reckless, they also thought that the success rate of Sasuke's sneak attack was quite high, and it was a long-range sneak attack, so there shouldn't be any risk. However, they didn't think that Sasuke's sneak attack not only didn't achieve any effect, but he also almost lost his life. If it wasn't for Jishui's timely action, Sasuke would have been hammered into meat paste. Dead Ale, who had been laughing and encouraging Sasuke to attack, also restrained his smile and looked at Nagato and Otsutsuki Samurai with a complex expression. He has always believed that the art of explosion is worthy of his life's pursuit. But the Akatsuki leader and Amatsukami leader fighting in front of him made him feel that the art he was so proud of was not even worth mentioning in front of the other party. This kind of disparity made him very depressed. In the field, the small interlude just now not only made the ninjas on the sidelines aware of the existence of Nagato's chakra clone, but it also made Otsutsuki Samurai, who was competing with Nagato, aware of the existence of the chakra clone. Under the shock, Otsutsuki Samurai, who originally had a slight advantage in this chakra battle, suddenly lost his footing, and the chakra that was pulled out of Nagato's body was snatched back by Nagato. And in the continuous battle, both of them found it difficult to continue. One's expression was getting more and more distorted, and the veins on his face were bulging as if he was trying his best, while the other was gasping for breath. But no matter how difficult it seemed for the two in the field, with the lesson of Sasuke, just now, the ninjas on the sidelines didn't act rashly. And in a shadow on the sidelines, Hyojin, who was also watching the battle, frowned slightly. As the initiator of the battle between Nagato and Otsutsuki Samurai, Hyojin has always been calm, but as the battle heated up, he faintly felt that something was wrong. At first, he couldn't tell where this feeling came from, but gradually, this feeling became stronger and stronger, making him suddenly realize why he had this feeling. They can't bear it so soon. Unlike other ninjas who only pay attention to the direction of the battle, Hyojin pays more attention to the information. It must be known that whether it is Nagato or Otsutsuki Samurai, both of them can be regarded as the strongest people standing at the peak of the shinobi world, and if measured by chakra's amount, the two of them should be the two people with the most chakra amount in the current shinobi world, except for Sage of Six Paths, who is in a strange state. But after fighting for such a short while, both of them showed obvious signs of fatigue, even though the two of them had fought with all their might in the clash just now, almost raising the surrounding dozens of miles to the ground. Such a performance still made Hyojin, who had higher aspirations, instinctively feel that something was wrong. After all, the Otsutsuki Yuki and Hamura brothers had fought against Kaguya for several months. Although this battle that lasted for several months is likely because both sides lack combat skills and can only rely on their instincts to fight, but it is also because of the clumsiness of the fighting skills of the mother and son that intuitively shows the chakra of the Kekii net level and the Kekii net close to the Kekii net level of the Kekii net level of the Kekii net level of the Kekii net, and the Kekii net of the Kekii net level of the Kekii net level of the Kekii net level of the Kekii net of the Kekii net level of the Kekii net of the Kekii net level of the Kekii net of the Kekii net level of the Kekii net of the Kekii net level of the Kekii net of the Kekii net. And if one compared the battle between Nagato and Otsutsuki Samurai with the battle between the Samsara brothers and Kaguya 1,000 years ago, one can clearly see the gap between those below the Samsara realm and those at the peak of the bloodline. Catcher. I'm afraid the chakra amount needed to break through the bloodline catcher is more than I expected. Hyojin's thoughts gradually scattered. The battle that could be used for reference was the last battle between Naruto and Sasuke in the original time and space. At that time, because of the gift from Sage of Six Paths, the two of them had just entered the threshold of the Six Paths level. One of them had the ability to temporarily condense the truth-seeking ball, and the other had the ability to touch the truth-seeking ball. And they also fought from day to dusk, and after fighting for almost a day, they were exhausted. From the rough estimation of these two battles, one conclusion could be drawn, and that was that the chakra amount of the bloodline catcher level was likely to be at the peak of the Six Paths level, which was twice the amount of the Six Paths level like Otsutsuki Yuki and Otsutsuki Hamura. It was 10 times the amount of the Six Paths level like Naruto and Sasuke in the final battle. As for how many times it was compared to Nagato and Otsutsuki Samurai in front of him, Hyojin could not accurately estimate for a moment, but it was at least 10 times or more. Just as Hyojin was secretly estimating the chakra amount of the bloodline catcher level, the situation in the field changed again. After stabilizing himself from being dragged out by the arm of Otsutsuki Samurai's Tenseigan chakra, Nagato saw an opportunity and suddenly put his palms together. In an instant, The outer path demon statue that was dismantling the ancestor stone statue stopped and instilled chakra into Nagato's body. And with the support of the outer path demon statue's chakra, Nagato's expression was distorted as he shouted, "Earth shatter, heavenly star." Rumble. At this moment, the entire ground began to tremble. Otsutsuki Samurai looked around blankly. What happened? The cracking sound of the ground quickly drowned out Otsutsuki Samurai's questions. At the same time, Otsutsuki Samurai himself was also sucked into the air by a strong traction force, and the broken stones on the ground swarmed towards Otsutsuki Samurai, burying Otsutsuki Samurai in an instant. Looking at Otsutsuki Samurai, who was trapped by the earth-shatter heavenly star without any resistance, the crowd of ninjas on the sidelines all looked at each other with panic on their faces. Even the two elders of the ninja world, 3 generations Naruto and 3 generations Sasuke, who had always been calm, had a trace of panic in their eyes. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1098. Am I seeing this right? The leader of Amitsukami was defeated? How is this possible? As the strongest person in the ninja world, how could he be defeated? Damn it! Isn't he from the same clan as the Sage of Six Paths? When Otsutsuki Samurai's figure gradually disappeared among the gravel and floated up to the sky, the ninjas on the sidelines suddenly burst into an uproar. No one expected that Otsutsuki Samurai would be defeated so suddenly, as if he was completely unprepared for Nagato's Kabaka Tensei. Only Hyojin, who was hiding in the shadows, looked up to the sky, and the corner of his mouth slightly raised. In the field, Nagato, who had succeeded in the surprise attack, didn't show much joy, and his face was still full of solemnity. Because last time when he fought with the leader of Amitsukami, the leader of Amitsukami used the Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion to forcibly cut open his Kabaka Tensei and easily escape from the seal of the Kabaka Tensei. Therefore, he was a little worried that the scene would repeat itself. So this time, not only did he not relax his vigilance, but he also paid close attention to the seal of the Kabaka Tensei in the sky and continued to send chakra into the Kabaka Tensei. And as Nagato continued to instill chakra, more and more gravel and soil floated up from the ground and rushed to the Kabaka Tensei in the sky, making the Kabaka Tensei that sealed Otsutsuki Samurai bigger and bigger, and soon it exceeded the size of all the Kabaka Tensei that Nagato had made in the past. Whoosh! At this moment, a meteorite wrapped in the Tenseigan chakra fell from the sky with a whistling sound. Meteorite? Nagato's eyes were cold. He knew that Otsutsuki Samurai would not be easily sealed by him, but he didn't expect that the way the other party broke his seal was not the Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion that successfully cut open the Kabaka Tensei last time, but to summon a meteorite. Boom! Under the control of the Tenseigan chakra, the meteorite accurately hit the Chibaku Tensei that sealed Otsutsuki Samurai in the air, making a loud explosion. The impact created a huge cloud of dust that instantly covered the sky. Great! There's still hope. As expected of the leader of Amitsukami, he won't be defeated so easily. Although the smoke and dust obscured the vision, so that the ninjas watching the battle could not see the result of the collision, but the appearance of the meteorite still made everyone excited, and hope was restored in their hearts. In next to no time, the dust in the sky was blown away to reveal the enormous earth-shattering heavenly star. Not only the people on the sidelines, but even Nagato on the field looked over with rapt attention. He found that although the meteorite had smashed a clear hole in the earth-shattering heavenly star, the overall structure was still stable. Nagato heaved a sigh of relief. I won this time. Swish, swish, swish. Before the joy on Nagato's face had completely disappeared, another meteor appeared in the sky, followed by a second and a third. Nagato's expression froze. All the ninjas on the sidelines were also horrified, because the meteorites were still appearing one after another. The fifth, the sixth, the seventh meteorites appeared one after another, and in just a moment, they filled everyone's vision. The whole sky seemed to be wrapped in the Tenseigan chakra, and the meteorites were shining brilliantly. Should we hide further away? Finally, someone reacted, but in the face of the meteorite rain, it was too late to hide at this time. Rumble. In an instant, in the continuous loud noise, flying gravel, rolling smoke, and raging air waves, the battlefield fell into darkness, as if the end of the world had come. On the sidelines, Jishui had to activate his Susanoo again and use the artifact Yada no Kagami to protect Sasuke, Kimimaro, Haku, and Deadale. The loud noise in their ears and the vibration of the Yada no Kagami from time to time made the people hiding in Jishui's Susanoo feel anxious. They didn't dare to imagine what would have happened without Jishui. All of a sudden, the shaking and the loud noise lessened a lot. It seemed that there were no more meteorites hitting the Susanoo that stopped the water, and even the splashing gravel had disappeared. The surprised Sasuke suddenly looked up, and in his blurred vision, he saw a figure slowly walking out of the smoke in the sky, and there seemed to be an invisible shield around this figure, and it was this shield that helped them block all the flying gravel. However, because of the excessive consumption of the pupil power, Sasuke couldn't see the appearance of the other person for a while, and he could only vaguely see that the other person was wearing the black cloak of Amatsukami. Obviously, Sasuke wasn't the only one who noticed that someone was approaching. Jishui, who had the Manjikyu Sharingan, and Haku, who could use nature's energy to perceive the surroundings, noticed it earlier than Sasuke, and then Kimimaro and Deadale also noticed it. The leader of Amatsukami? After seeing that the person was wearing the mask of the leader of Amatsukami, except for Jishui, everyone was shocked, and then they felt uneasy. After all, they were all disguised as members of Amatsukami. They were all fakes, so it was natural for them to feel a little nervous when they met the real deal. What made them even more confused was that Otsutsuki Tonari was still sealed in the earth-shattering heavenly star in the sky, and he wasn't wearing the black and gold-edged cloak of Amatsukami. So, they couldn't figure out the identity of this mysterious person who was dressed like Amatsukami's Yama. Obviously, the person who came was none other than Hyojin. After entering Jishui's Susanoo, Hyojin glanced at Sasuke, Haku, Kimimaro, and Deadale beside Jishui, and a strange expression flashed on his face. As Naruto, he naturally heard that the village wanted to arrange people to pretend to be members of Amatsukami, but at that time, his mind was focused on developing the lightning release clone, so he didn't pay much attention to it. He didn't know whether it was a coincidence or God's will, but the ninjas chosen by the village to pretend to be members of Amatsukami, except for Sasuke, were all targets that he had collected cells from. Among them, the cells of the water release clone came from Haku, the cells of the fire release clone came from Jishui, the cells of the wind release clone came from Kimimaro, and the cells of the earth release clone came from Deadale. Ah, what a coincidence! Hyojin smiled and shook his head. Jishui naturally knew Hyojin's identity, so he hurriedly asked, "Do you have any instructions?" After Jishui spoke, Sasuke, Haku, Kimimaro, and Deadale all looked at Hyojin nervously. Hyojin smiled and asked Haku, "Can you still enter Sage Mode?" "Yes." Haku nodded and didn't say anything else. He immediately entered Sage Mode. Hyojin reached into Haku's body and instantly absorbed the immortal technique chakra in Haku's body. Then, he shifted his gaze to the center of the battlefield. "I'm sorry, there's only one chapter today." Chapter 1099. Since he didn't have any immortal technique, nature energy was harmful to Hyojin. Once he absorbed a large amount of it, even his body would start to show signs of petrification. However, if it was the nature energy that had fused with chakra, which was the immortal technique chakra, he could absorb it and use it. In the original space-time, Uchiha Madara, who didn't have any immortal technique, had absorbed the immortal technique chakra from the first generation and used it. Of course, since the immortal technique chakra that Hyojin absorbed wasn't made from his own chakra, Its compatibility and efficiency couldn't be compared to his Tenseigan chakra. Stop! Seeing Hyojin casually take Haku's chakra, Kimimaro was about to make a move. Jishui quickly stopped Kimimaro and shook his head. Since he trusted Jishui, Kimimaro suppressed the thought of making a move and stared at Hyojin. Sasuke and Dead Ale, who were seriously injured, also looked nervous. They subconsciously retreated a bit and were on high alert. Not to mention Hyojin's attire as the leader of Amatsukami. Just the fact that he could casually take Haku's chakra made Sasuke and Dead Ale instinctively tremble in fear. Haku, who was being absorbed by Hyojin's immortal technique chakra, suddenly froze. He looked at Hyojin with a bewildered expression and said, "You are?" Because he was once possessed by Suijin using the soul descend technique. Coupled with the connection of chakra at this moment, Haku immediately recognized the mysterious person wearing a black cloak with golden edges and a ghost mask in front of him as Suijin. Okay. Hyojin, who was still looking at the battlefield in the distance, did not turn around. He only responded indifferently. After confirming Hyojin's true identity, the fear in Bai's heart immediately dissipated. Then, he gathered even more immortal art chakra with all his might. However, because he had used up too much of his chakra to stop Lil Nan's detonation talisman cloud, he quickly fainted. After withdrawing his hand from Haku, Hyojin instructed Jishui, "Take care of him." Yes. Jishui nodded. Sasuke, Kimimaro, and Dead Ale were inexplicably horrified, as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Ignoring Sasuke and the others, Hyojin clenched his fists and muttered, "Is this the immortal art chakra?" It was not that Hyojin had never dealt with natural energy. His dragon vein contained a large amount of natural energy, but it was his first time using the immortal art chakra. Therefore, while he was feeling curious, he instinctively analyzed the difference between the immortal art chakra and ordinary chakra. In terms of chakra attributes, the immortal art chakra was a lot more vague. It felt as if the natural energy had diluted the attributes of chakra, causing the attributes of the immortal art chakra to be more vague after the fusion. What is the best ratio for the fusion of chakra and natural energy? Which attribute of chakra has the highest tolerance and utilization of natural energy? After fusing with natural energy, what changes will happen to chakra? For a moment, out of his scientific research instinct, countless questions flashed through his mind. There was no doubt that the immortal art was a huge system that was not inferior to the chakra system. It was not something that could be figured out in a short time. Therefore, he instantly put away his scattered thoughts and focused on the battlefield again. The battlefield was still dark and gloomy. The meteorites that kept falling from the sky let out a series of whistling and exploding sounds, causing the entire ground to undulate endlessly. The air waves that carried the gravel were also wreaking havoc on the battlefield. It was a completely doomsday scene. In such a complicated situation, even Hyojin, who had the Tenseigan, could not completely understand everything on the battlefield, let alone an ordinary ocular technique ninja. This was because not only were the smoke, airwaves, and gravel interfering with his vision, but there were also a large number of Rinnegan chakra, Tenseigan chakra, and violent-tailed beast chakra on the battlefield. So much so that in Suijin's field of vision, all he could see was chakra, almost filling the whole world. TSK. After a careful observation for a moment, Hyojin spat lightly. Although he could not completely understand everything on the battlefield, with his rich experience and sensitivity to Tenseigan chakra, he still faintly noticed that Otsutsuki Samurai got rid of Nagato's seal with the help of the meteorites and fled in panic. There is no doubt that Nagato's earthly explosion heavenly star really scared Otsutsuki Samurai. And with the escape of Otsutsuki Samurai, the meteorite rain in the sky also stopped, and the smoke and dust that covered the sky gradually dissipated, revealing a messy battlefield. In the sky in the center of the battlefield, the earthly explosion heavenly star created by Nagato was still suspended there. But compared to before, the earthly explosion heavenly star hanging high in the air had been broken, and there was no longer a spherical shape. and gravel was constantly falling from it. It seemed that it was difficult to maintain. Hyojin frowned slightly. He did not expect that after being hit by so many meteorites, Nagato's earthly explosion heavenly star had not been completely destroyed, which was really beyond his expectations. Immediately afterward, Hyojin moved his vision down and looked at the ground. The huge Outer Path demon statue supported the ground with both hands, protecting Nagato under its body. But despite the protection of the Outer Path demon statue, there was still an obvious wound on Nagato's forehead, and bright red blood flowed out of the wound, dyeing most of his cheeks red. Not only that, he was half squatting on the ground, gasping for breath, showing his exhaustion. Obviously, in order to maintain the earthly explosion heavenly star, Nagato has been consuming his own Rinnegan chakra to fight against the meteorite rain summoned by Otsutsuki Samurai using the giant Tenseigan. It must be known that Otsutsuki Tonari's summoning of the meteorite rain consumes the chakra of the giant Tenseigan on the moon, and it is mainly consumed to push the meteorite and correct the direction of the meteorite's fall. The real power of the meteorite actually comes from the mass of the meteorite itself and the gravity of nature. From a certain point of view, Otsutsuki Samurai used the giant Tenseigan on the moon to summon the meteorite, which is similar to the Kirin Jutsu, which uses the lightning release ninjutsu to draw the natural thunder and lightning from the clouds. Both are beyond the scope of normal ninjutsu and belong to a clever use of natural energy. In this case, Nagato was undoubtedly at a disadvantage when he used his own chakra to resist. At this time, the Outer Path demon statue, which was as huge as a hill, propped up its body and moved to the side. Nagato, who was panting heavily, slowly raised his head and looked at the broken, earthly explosion heavenly star in the sky, and his face was extremely gloomy. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 1100. As the creator of Chibaku Tensei, Nagato naturally noticed that Otsutsuki Samurai had successfully escaped. If it was against an ordinary enemy, Chibaku Tensei would indeed be a one-hit kill. After all, even Kagaya, who was a Kekiai net, was defeated by this technique. But Otsutsuki Samurai was slightly different, because just sealing Otsutsuki Samurai himself could not completely destroy his resistance. He just needed to take advantage of the time when he was sealed to send a message to the giant Tenseigan on the moon. Then even if he was completely sealed and chakra was completely frozen, the giant Tenseigan on the moon would still execute the order he left. Therefore, Nagato's failure this time had nothing to do with the tactics he executed. It was all because of the lack of information. Damn it, I let him escape. In addition to the annoyance, Nagato gradually had some doubts in his heart. Until the battle just now, he firmly believed that the leader of Amitsukami was Otsutsuki Samurai, but as Otsutsuki Samurai fled, he gradually realized that the Otsutsuki Samurai who just fought with him was very different from the leader of Amitsukami, who he had fought with several times before. Although the chakra used by the two was very similar, and both had summoned meteorites, the fighting styles of the two were completely different. And just now, Otsutsuki Samurai obviously could not use the fierce pupil techniques that the leader of Amitsukami had used, nor could he use the black sphere that could nail his chakra clone. Is that guy just now not the real Otsutsuki Samurai? Or Otsutsuki Samurai is not the real leader of Amitsukami? For a moment, this thought flashed in Nagato's mind. The reason why he firmly believes that Otsutsuki Samurai is the leader of Amitsukami is not only because of the information provided by Hyuga Aoki, but also because he believes that only the legendary Otsutsuki clan is worthy of the identity of the leader of Amitsukami. As for the others, they were not qualified to go against him since he possessed the celestial eye. It was this confidence in his own strength, or perhaps arrogance, that made him ignore many obvious details. Now that he thought about it carefully, he couldn't help but notice that not only his fighting style, but even his behavior, the Otsutsuki Tonari Otsutsuki, just now, was completely different from the leader of Amitsukami in his impression. On the sidelines, I didn't expect Otsutsuki Samurai to escape so easily, Just as Nagato was in a state of confusion, Hyojin silently evaluated Nagato's current state. Frankly speaking, the timing of Nagato's attack this time made Hyojin very unhappy. He had to abandon the Yang release clone that was at a critical moment in the laboratory and rush to fight. Moreover, he was close to breaking through the bloodline fusion ritual, so he couldn't fight with all his strength. That was why he had no choice but to target Otsutsuki Samurai. In fact, he didn't want to do this. The reason was very simple. Otsutsuki Samurai was also one of his prey. If Otsutsuki Samurai was killed by Nagato, everything would be fine. Hyojin could use the resonance between him and the giant Tenseigan on the moon to slowly search for the way to the moon. Then, he could easily receive all the Otsutsuki clan's inheritance on the moon, including the giant Tenseigan. After all, Otsutsuki Samurai should be the only descendant of the Otsutsuki clan left on the moon now. But now that Otsutsuki Samurai had successfully escaped, things would be troublesome. Otsutsuki Samurai was not an idiot. This was obviously a trap, and it was impossible for him not to notice it. So, it was basically impossible for Hyojin to use his giant Tenseigan to set up a trap for him in the future. And once Otsutsuki Samurai was alerted, no one could predict what he would do in the future. Hyojin laughed at himself in his heart. Fortunately, he consumed a lot of Nagato's chakra, so my efforts were not in vain. His current plan was to repel Nagato and buy some time for himself to break through the Kekkei net. It would be best if he could seriously injure Nagato. As for killing Nagato, he didn't consider it for the time being. Because the outer path demon statue was guarding the side, it would be difficult for him to kill Nagato without risking his life. Besides, he was the same as Otsutsuki Samurai. He couldn't withstand Nagato's Earth Blow Tensei. And as long as he successfully advanced to the Kekkei net, killing Nagato would be easy, and there would be no risk at all. My village, Otsutsuki Sarai, who was wounded all over, and his left arm was still dripping blood, glanced at the 5 Earth Blow Tensei sealed with Jinchuriki over my village, and his face was extremely gloomy. Obviously, he didn't directly escape back to the moon, but took advantage of the chaos of the meteor shower to escape from the battlefield and sneak into my village. He was not ignorant about the Earth Blow Tensei. He knew that the moon where his clan lived was created by the 2 Otsutsuki ancestors using the Earth Blow Tensei, but it was the first time that he personally experienced the feeling of being sealed by the Earth Blow Tensei. After the initial panic, he immediately realized that he was not Nagato's opponent. Because he lived on the moon, he knew the true horror of the Earth Blow Tensei more than Nagato. So in order to complete the last wish of his ancestors, he must improve himself by any means necessary. As for the method of improvement, the elder of the clan has already told him before his death that is to select a pair of high-purity Byakugan from the Hyuga clan and transplant it. By combining his own body with the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan, he can make up for all the genes and awaken the power hidden in the bloodline. Otsutsuki Samurai knows that the Hyuga clan in the shinobi world implements a system of clan and branch families. Except for a very small number of clan members, all the other clansmen are engraved with the cage bird curse seal, so he can't easily take away the Byakugan. So he's been spying on the members of the Hyuga clan through the giant Tenseigan on the moon for many years. However, the aptitude of the members of the Hyuga clan disappointed him very much. Even the Byakugan of the patriarch Hyuga Hayashi, who was in the prime of his life, didn't attract his attention, let alone the Byakugan of the other elders of the Hyuga clan. It wasn't until the appearance of Huahua that his eyes lit up and he had a goal. It's just that Huahua is still young. Although the purity of the Byakugan is extremely high, it is still in the development stage. So he restrained his temper and waited for Huahua to grow up. He even planned to take away Huahua's pair of high-purity Byakugan, and then take Hinata back to the moon as his wife. After purifying the shinobi world according to the last wish of his ancestors, he will recreate the Otsutsuki clan with Hinata in the purified shinobi world. Yes, Otsutsuki Samurai has a kind of confidence in himself. He feels that he can create a clan. The second update is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes, and thank you to the students who tipped yesterday. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1101. Galloping all the way through the ruined streets, the injured Otsutsuki samurai avoided all the my ninjas and quietly arrived outside the Hyuga clan's territory. Because of the previous rampage of the human path, the Hyuga clan's territory has been severely damaged, and most of the houses on both sides of the clan's territory have been destroyed. The two brothers, Hayashi and Richa, are now commanding the clansmen to treat the wounded and clean up the clan's territory. Seeing the sudden appearance of Otsutsuki samurai, Richa was startled for a moment, and then immediately said in surprise, "It's you." Noticing the white eyes in Otsutsuki samurai's eye sockets and the smooth forehead without the cage bird curse mark, Hayashi's expression became solemn as he thought of something and quickly asked Richa, "Could it be?" "Yeah." Richa nodded. Last time, he represented the Hyuga clan and had a secret meeting with Otsutsuki samurai, so he recognized the identity of the other party at a glance. As Richa nodded, Hayashi's face suddenly became serious, and he stepped forward and asked, "Your Excellency is Otsutsuki samurai, right?" The news that Otsutsuki samurai is the leader of Amitsukami has long been spread throughout the upper echelons of the shinobi world. Although the Hyuga clan did not get the exact news, as a member of my clan, the Naruto family, they still heard some relevant rumors. So when facing Otsutsuki samurai, although Hayashi is very vigilant, his tone is very respectful, as if the previous conflict did not exist. Covering his injured arm, Otsutsuki samurai did not say a word, just looked at Hayashi indifferently, or to be precise, looked at the white eyes in Hayashi's eye sockets, showing a touch of imperceptible disgust on his face. Otsutsuki samurai's silence made Hayashi, Richa, and all the surrounding Hyuga clansmen feel an inexplicable uneasiness. After a while, Otsutsuki samurai used the Byakugan again and swept around the Hyuga clan and did not find any trace of Hinata and Spark. He locked his eyes on Hayashi with a look of regret. "It seems that I can only make do." Obviously feeling the hostility of Otsutsuki samurai, Richa immediately stood in front of Hayashi to protect him and put on a soft fist posture. "This is the my village, and the 5th Dame Saruto Hyojin is also a member of our Hyuga clan. You'd better not act recklessly." Whether the rumors are true or not, Otsutsuki samurai is not someone the Hyuga clan can offend, so Richa had to bring up Hyojin, hoping to borrow the name of Hyojin Naruto to make Otsutsuki samurai have some scruples. Otsutsuki samurai walked slowly towards Hayashi and Richa while asking casually, "Naruto should be the strongest ninja in your village, right?" Richa nodded without hesitation, "Yes." Hayashi stared at Otsutsuki samurai, who was walking slowly, and he was a little uncertain about what the other party was going to do. Otsutsuki samurai, however, said to himself, "So, the Hyuga clansman named Hyojin is the one with the purest Byakugan in the Hyuga clan. It's a pity that he is not a member of the Hyuga clan. Otherwise, the probability of awakening the Tenseigan might be higher if I transplant his Byakugan." As soon as they heard that Otsutsuki samurai wanted to transplant the Byakugan, Hayashi and Richa both changed their expressions. Immediately, Richa used his soft fist and pounced on Otsutsuki samurai while shouting, "Brother, you go." Otsutsuki samurai waved his hand and launched Rain Will Pull, throwing Richa, who was pouncing on him, into the ruins on the street, and then slightly waved at Hayashi, pulling Hayashi in front of him. Hayashi's face turned red, and he wanted to launch a soft fist to fight back, but he found that he seemed to be wrapped by an invisible force. Not to mention using a soft fist, he couldn't even stretch his limbs. Otsutsuki samurai observed the Byakugan in Hayashi's eye sockets at a close distance, and then slowly reached out. "What are you doing?" Seeing Otsutsuki samurai reach out to his eyes, Hayashi was extremely shocked. He never thought that as the patriarch of the Hyuga clan, there would be a day when the Byakugan in his eye sockets would be dug out without any resistance in the Hyuga clan's land. Richa, who fell in the ruins, struggled to support his body and roared, "Aren't you afraid of the revenge of the Hyuga clan for doing such evil things?" Revenge? Otsutsuki Samurai was stunned, and then a blank look appeared on his face. How can the Hyuga clan retaliate against me? Richa, who originally just wanted to say some harsh words to stop Otsutsuki Samurai from digging out his eyes, was suddenly stunned and speechless. Otsutsuki Samurai turned his head and stared at Hayashi at this time, and snorted coldly. You obviously have the same noble ancestral bloodline, but you can't do this. You really make me feel disgusted. Hayashi was ashamed and angry, but he couldn't refute it. Without saying anything more, Otsutsuki Samurai directly took action and accurately dug out the Byakugan in Hayashi's eye sockets. Hayashi, who had his eyes dug out, suddenly wailed. Seeing this, the Hyuga clansmen on the side no longer cared about the identity of Otsutsuki Samurai and rushed at him from all directions. Otsutsuki Samurai waved his hand fiercely, and a huge repulsive force sprayed out from his hand and instantly sent all the Hyuga clansmen who rushed at him flying. Then Otsutsuki Samurai threw away Hayashi, who had lost his eyes like garbage, and muttered to himself, "The ancestor was right. The ninja world has completely fallen, and it needs to be thoroughly purified." Hayashi, who fell to the ground, said painfully, "Otsutsuki Samurai, Kuroda will not let you go. Hyjin, he may be a little stronger than you, but in my eyes, he's just an ant that's not worth mentioning." Otsutsuki Samurai said as he put away Hayashi's Byakugan. At this moment, a soft shout came from the distant street. Psychic summoning technique. Bang! With a burst of white smoke, a huge wild boar appeared in everyone's sight, and Hyuga Ningxi stood on the head of the wild boar, staring coldly at Otsutsuki Samurai. "Don't insult my sensei." Seeing Ningxi, Richa shouted, "Be careful, he is Otsutsuki Samurai." Otsutsuki Samurai casually glanced at the big wild boar, as well as Ningxi on the head of the big wild boar. His gaze stopped on Ningxi's Byakugan for a moment, and he said calmly, "Not bad Byakugan." Seeing his injured father and his uncle whose eyes had been dug out, Ningxi was shocked. He hurriedly urged the big wild boar to pounce on Otsutsuki Samurai. Return the Byakugan. Otsutsuki Samurai, who had already received the Byakugan, floated into the air while using rain pull on the big wild boar that was pouncing on him. To him, such a huge psychic beast was no threat at all. If he wanted to, he could easily crush the other party into meat paste. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 1102. In an instant, a huge repulsive force was emitted from Otsutsuki Samurai's palm, like an invisible big hand slapping towards the big wild boar. Rumble, with a roar, the huge wild boar was slapped by the repulsive force, and suddenly staggered and fell heavily to the ground. Otsutsuki Samurai calmly retracted his gaze, and then continued to float to the sky. He didn't care too much about the big wild boar that pounced on him, because his mind at the moment was all about rushing back to the moon as soon as possible and transplanting the Byakugan to awaken the Tenseigan. At this moment, Otsutsuki Samurai, who was floating high in the sky, suddenly stopped, and then his whole body seemed to be pulled by an invisible force, and he fell sharply. Bang! Otsutsuki Samurai, who fell hard to the ground, had a blank look in his eyes. Then he looked at the big wild boar that he had just slapped away, and was surprised to find that the big wild boar had a complex chakra similar to the Tenseigan chakra. Soft fist, 8 trigrams, 64 palms. Without waiting for Otsutsuki Samurai to take a closer look, Ningxi used soft fist and appeared in front of him. Pa pa pa! Otsutsuki Samurai, who was a little distracted, was instantly hit by Ningxi's soft fist, and the raindrop-like palm technique hit him, making a low and rhythmic muffled sound. After finishing a set of soft punches, Ningxi immediately retreated far away and carefully observed the fight. Did you succeed? Ningxi did a good job. I finally killed this guy. Richa, who fell to the side, and the other Hyuga clansmen did not expect that Ningxi could really hit Otsutsuki Samurai. They were surprised and happy. Cough! At this time, Otsutsuki Samurai coughed up blood and stood up shakily, his face a little gloomy. Ningxi shouted, "Hand over the Byakugan. You have been hit by my soft fist. Your meridians are blocked, and you can't use chakra." Oomph. Otsutsuki Samurai snorted and stretched out his palms. In an instant, a huge repulsive force spread out in all directions with Kuroto as the center, and for a time, the entire Hyuga clan was covered in sand and stones, and the sky was dark. After the smoke and dust dissipated, Ningxi, who climbed out of the ruins with difficulty, glanced around and saw that Otsutsuki Samurai had disappeared. His face was full of confusion. My soft fist is obviously sealed his meridians. How can he still use ninjutsu? On the battlefield outside the village, as the smoke and dust gradually dispersed, several Kage on the sidelines quickly discovered that Otsutsuki Samurai, who was fighting with Nagato, seemed to have escaped. They looked at each other in dismay. The leader of Amatsuki escaped? The scene in front of them was really difficult for them to accept. They couldn't imagine that the strongest ninja in the shinobi world would run away in such a panic. After a while, 3 generations of Naruto slammed the golden staff in his hand on the ground and said in a deep voice, "No matter what, as Kage, we can't retreat." 4 generations of Lei Ing nodded immediately. "Yes, even if Amatsuki was defeated, we can't just give up." 4 generations of Kazekage's face flashed with hesitation. "Do we have a chance of winning?" While observing Nagato, 3 generations of Tsuchikage said, "Although the leader of Amatsuki was defeated, Nagato seems to have consumed a lot of energy. Maybe we still have a chance." On the other side, Jiraiya looked around, and his face was a little pale. After the previous round of meteor shower, the ninjas who followed him here suffered a lot of casualties, and this was the result after Otsutsuki Samurai corrected the falling position of the meteors and concentrated all the firepower on the Tensei. Otherwise, not to mention the surrounding ninjas, even Jiraiya may not have been able to escape. Puffed. Shinichi on the side spat out the dust in his mouth, then looked at the battlefield, and then let out a light sound of surprise. Following Shinichi's light sound, the surrounding survivors all looked at the battlefield, and then they were shocked to find that only Nagato and the huge outer path demon statue were left on the battlefield. As for Otsutsuki Samurai and the ancestral stone statue that Otsutsuki Samurai used to summon spirit, they were all gone. Where's the leader of Amatsuki? The Tensei in the sky is obviously broken, and that Otsutsuki Samurai should have escaped. Could it be that he's been killed? The surprised ninjas immediately began to discuss. Shinichi said casually, "Could it be that he escaped?" When Jiraiya heard this, the corner of his mouth twitched. "No, it can't be. The enemy is the leader of Amatsuki." Under the perception and observation of the crowd, it was soon confirmed that Otsutsuki Samurai was indeed not in the battlefield. What should we do now? It's over, it's all over. The leader of Akatsuki is so strong that even the leader of Amatsuki is no match for him. What's the point of resisting? The moment when it was confirmed that Otsutsuki Samurai had escaped, despair enveloped everyone. Not to mention the ninjas. Even the 2 immortals on Jiraiya's shoulder, Fukasaku and Shima, felt uneasy in the face of this completely hopeless situation. At this time, Jiraiya waved his hand. "If you want to leave, now is the time to do so." Amai Jonin stepped forward and asked, "What about you?" Jiraiya shook his head. "I won't leave, and I can't leave." Swish! Almost at the same time, the Kages Tsunade, Jiraiya, and the others jumped from different directions and appeared in front of Nagato. Looking at the Kages Tsunade, Jiraiya, and the others, Nagato returned to his usual indifference. "Hand over the 9 tails as Jinchuriki and the 7 tails as Jinchuriki. You have lost." The Kages Tsunade, Jiraiya, and the others looked at each other and saw the determination in each other's eyes, so they didn't say any unnecessary nonsense and acted together. Jiraiya quickly printed, and then pressed on the ground, "Psychic art." Bang! In a burst of white smoke, Monta jumped out and sprayed a large mouthful of toad oil at Nagato. Standing on top of Manta's head, Jiraiya didn't stay idle, again printed, and together with the two immortals on his shoulder, they launched the immortal art 5 right guard gate. In an instant, a monstrous sea of fire seemed to fall from the sky towards Nagato. At the same time, after applying the heavy rock technique on 3 generations Naruto and 4 generations Lei Ying, the 3 generations Tsuchikage, who was floating in the air, went behind Nagato and found an extremely tricky angle to launch the dust release. And with the help of the heavy rock technique, 3 generations Naruto and 4 generations Lei Ying, with the help of the golden sand that was constantly rolling forward under their feet, they went around to both sides and pounced towards Nagato with incomparable agility. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 1103. On the front, Jiraiya cooperated with the 2 sage toads, as well as the toad bunta, and used the fire oil compound ninjutsu of the 5 right guard gate and the toad oil flame bomb. The oil in bunta, the toad's mouth, was not the usual ordinary oil, but the toad oil from the toad pond of Mount Myaboku that was rich in natural energy. After being ignited by Jiraiya's fire oil compound ninjutsu, the fire oil compound ninjutsu had also become a kind of immortal technique rich in natural energy. The 3 generations of Tsuchikage that went behind Nagato aimed at Nagato's back and launched a large-scale boundary stripping technique. The range of the technique even included the outer path demon statue that was not far from Nagato. The 3 generations of Tsuchikage and 4 generations of Lei Ying that went to the sides were extremely fast. With the help of the 3 generations of Tsuchikage's heavy rock technique and the 4 generations of Kazekage's golden sand, they were as dexterous as ghosts. In broad daylight, they left a long shadow and attacked Nagato. Facing the attack from all directions, Nagato showed disdain. This kind of attack might be a disaster for other ninjas, but it was nothing for him. He directly changed his position with a Luon Mu doppelganger in the distance, and easily avoided the immortal technique attack that Jiraiya had carefully planned. Then he stretched out his hand towards the 3 generations of Tsuchikage that had launched the dust release and said, 10,000 mammoth summoning. Swish! In an instant, the fluorescent light in his hand had just expanded. The 3 generations of Tsuchikage that had not been completely released was pulled by a suction force, and its body was uncontrollably thrown towards Nagato. At this time, a golden sand rose from the ground and suddenly wrapped around the 3 generations of Tsuchikage, fighting against Nagato's 10,000 mammoth summoning. Tsunade, who had not made a move, leaped up and punched at Nagato. Nagato's expression remained unchanged. His other hand reached out to Tsunade, who was pouncing on him. Have a taste of the wood release. In an instant, a sharp wooden stake pierced out from the ground, directly impaling Tsunade, who was leaping in midair. Tsunade, whose body was pierced, did not cry out in pain. Instead, she gritted her teeth and activated the Een seal. Then, she used her monstrous strength to forcibly break the wooden stake and fell to the ground. Once again, she flew towards Nagato. Nagato's face turned serious. He gave up the 10,000 mammoths and put his palms together. Wood release, tree world descends. Rumble. In the roar, countless branches rose from the ground and grew wildly. In the blink of an eye, a lush forest was formed and entangled everyone. The first to bear the brunt was naturally Tsunade. Although she had a monstrous strength, in the face of the ever-growing sea of trees that could absorb chakra, after struggling for a while, she was finally wrapped inside and outside by the branches. 4 generations of Lei Ying, who was also trapped in the sea of trees, relied on the fierceness of the thunder-release chakra mode and rushed all the way to Nagato like a violent thunderbolt. 3 generations of Naruto was as agile as a monkey in the forest. He moved up and down in the sea of trees that were growing crazily. The speed at which he rushed towards Nagato was not much slower than 4 generations of Lei Ying. Taking advantage of the gap when Nagato's attention was attracted by Tsunade, 4 generations of Lei Ying and 3 generations of Naruto quickly arrived in front of him. Under the new and old hatred, 4 generations of Lei Ying did not intend to be stingy with chakra. He activated the Thunder Release chakra mode to the extreme and shouted angrily, "Thunder abusing water and leveling Chiyo dance." 3 generations of Naruto swept the Vajra Wishful Rod in his hand and destroyed all the trees in front of 4 generations of Lei Ying, clearing the obstacles for 4 generations of Lei Ying attack. Boom! Amidst the loud noise, 4 generations of Lei Ying completed the all-out attack, and the entire sea of trees trembled. 3 generations of Naruto immediately looked over, but found that Nagato had disappeared into the distance. 4 generations of Lei Ying seemed to have only hit a mass of solid air, or simply hit the trees that were growing wildly. 3 generations of Naruto's face darkened, and he immediately looked around. Before 3 generations of Naruto could lock onto Nagato's trace again, a scream from 4 generations of Kazekage came from outside the tree. 3 generations of Naruto immediately slammed the Vajra Wishful Rod in his hand against the tree in front of him. With the reaction force and the ability of the Vajra Wishful Rod, he quickly jumped out of the sea of trees and came in front of 4 generations of Kazekage, asking, "Are you okay?" 4 generations of Kazekage, who was covering his shoulder, said, "I can still hold on." Just now, Nagato suddenly appeared behind him, and while he was unprepared, he directly pierced his left shoulder with the black rod. Fortunately, Nagato did not continue to pursue, so he barely escaped. On the opposite side, Nagato, who was holding the black rod that was dripping with blood, said in a flat tone, "No matter how you resist, the end is doomed." At this moment, in the sand pile on the side, 3 generations of Earth Shadow suddenly jumped out and used Dust Release on Nagato without saying a word. A shining beam of light instantly attacked Nagato. Nagato did not dodge and reached out to absorb the incoming Dust Release. Swoosh! Just as Nagato absorbed the Dust Release, Jiraiya in Sage Mode also jumped out from the ground and punched at Nagato. Because Dust Release was after all a fusion of 3 kinds of Chakra's blood elimination, it was much more difficult to absorb than ordinary ninjutsu, and Jiraiya in Sage Mode's physical attack could not be underestimated. So after feeling a trace of threat, Nagato did not choose to entangle, but his eyes were cold, and once again changed position with a Luen Mu doppelganger in the distance. However, just after Nagato completed the change and appeared in the distance, a figure suddenly jumped out from the ground at his feet. "You?" Nagato was taken aback. The figure that suddenly jumped out was not a bystander. It was 3 generations of Naruto. The 3 generations of Naruto who had been cooperating with everyone was actually a shadow doppelganger. And the real 3 generations of Naruto had long hidden near one of Nagato's Luen Mu doppelganger under Jiraiya's hint. Because Jiraiya did not show the ability to perceive the Luen Mu doppelganger, so Nagato was not prepared in this aspect. Just when Nagato was a little stunned, 3 generations of Naruto had already completed the hand seal, Ghoul Seal. With 3 generations of Naruto's roar, the shadow of the Grim Reaper with a short knife in its mouth appeared behind 3 generations of Naruto. "Nagato, it's over," 3 generations of Naruto said with a determined face. Seeing the appearance of the Grim Reaper's shadow, Nagato sneered. "You want to use our Maelstrom clan's sealing technique to seal me?" 3 generations of Naruto's face froze when he heard that, and a bad premonition surged from the bottom of his heart. Nagato's eyes turned cold at this moment, and the reincarnation eyes in his eye sockets shone brightly, instantly suppressing the Grim Reaper's shadow behind 3 generations of Naruto. It's going to be a new week soon, and the ranking list will be updated. So, I'm begging for recommendation votes. It's just a small effort. I hope everyone can support me. Also, I'd like to thank the students who have tipped today. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1104. As one of the few surviving descendants of the Uzumaki clan, Nagato is no stranger to the Uzumaki sealing technique developed by the Uzumaki clan. This is not only because he is a member of the Uzumaki clan, but also because in order to find Amitsukami, he did a lot of investigation and exploration in the shinobi world. In the process of investigation, he found a lot of relics and ancient books of the Uzumaki clan, from which he learned a lot about the history of the Uzumaki clan and many secret techniques passed down from generation to generation. An undead ghost sealing technique is one of them. Among all the sealing techniques developed by the Uzumaki clan, undead ghost sealing technique can be regarded as the most powerful, and at the same time, it is also the most costly forbidden technique. Even someone as strong as Nine-Tailed was unable to resist this forbidden technique. On the night of the Nine-Tails Rebellion, the Four Generations Naruto used this forbidden technique to split the Nine-Tails into two halves. One half was sealed in the body of his son, Naruto, and the other half was sealed in the body of the Shinigami. It can be said that under normal circumstances, once this technique is used, it can at least complete a one-for-one exchange. In the original story, the Three Generations Naruto used undead ghost sealing technique to seal the souls of the first Naruto, and the second Naruto using undead ghost sealing technique to crack Orochimaru's Edo Tensei, and try to seal Orochimaru's hands, using his own life to seal the 2.5 enemies. And now, the Three Generations Naruto is also ready to use his own life as the price to complete the seal on Nagato. However, the Three Generations Naruto obviously overestimated the undead ghost sealing technique and underestimated Nagato, who has the Rinnegan. When he saw the shadow of the Shinigami behind him gradually dispersing under the power of Nagato's Rinnegan, his wrinkled face was full of shock. Nagato said coldly, "This technique is meaningless to me. The hypostasis of the ghoul seal, which was also the hypostasis of the god of death that was summoned, was actually not as high as the Three Generations Naruto imagined. As long as the right method was used, it was possible to fool the god of death and release the soul that was sealed in the stomach of the god of death. In other words, there was a way to break the ghoul seal, and the Maelstrom family had found a long time ago. However, because the Maelstrom kingdom was destroyed, many ancient books and secret techniques of the Maelstrom family were lost, and the method was lost. With Nagato's current strength that was nearing the 6th Daos level, the demon statue of the heretic path, and the huge chakra provided by the five-tailed beasts, even if he didn't use any method to break it, the ghoul seal would not be able to seal him. At least, it would not be able to seal him when he was in perfect condition. After the shadow of the god of death was dispelled, the Three Generations Naruto took 2 steps back with a disappointed look on his face. Nagato used the power of the eyes of Samsara to dispel the shadow of the god of death. In fact, he also saved the life of the Three Generations Naruto, so that he would not be buried in the stomach of the god of death. However, the Three Generations Naruto did not feel happy because of this. On the contrary, his heart was filled with powerlessness and despair, because the ghoul seal was already the most powerful sealing technique that he could use. If even the sealing technique could not deal with Nagato, then he would have no way to deal with Nagato at all. The Three Generations Naruto was not the only one who felt despair. The other Kage that cooperated with the Three Generations Naruto, as well as Jiraiya, Tsunade, and others also felt an indescribable sense of powerlessness when they saw this scene. The Kage of Three Generations seemed to have aged a lot all of a sudden. Is it still not enough? The eyes of the injured Three Generations of Kazekage flickered, and the idea of retreating faintly appeared in his mind. Damn it! Tsunade, who was rescued from the sea of trees by the Three Generations Laying, punched the ground with a face full of unwillingness. Jiraiya had a look of disbelief on his face. How is this possible? Even the ghoul seal can't stop him? Master Fukasaku shook his head. He is no longer on the same level as us. At this time, Nagato spread his arms and said to everyone, "Hand over the 9 tails Jinchuriki and the 7 tails Jinchuriki, and accept the reality. I am the real God who can bring eternal peace to the shinobi world." Three Generations Naruto waved his hand and took the golden staff from the hands of the shadow clone, shook his head and said, "As long as I am alive, I will never hand over the Jinchuriki to you. Nagato glanced at the 3 generations Naruto impatiently and immediately shouted, Shinra Tensei. Boom! A huge repulsive force instantly swept in all directions, including the 3 generations Naruto. Several Kages, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Buntitoad were all repelled and sent flying. At this time, a black staff slipped out of Nagato's sleeve, and he held in his hand and said emotionlessly, the shinobi world doesn't need you so-called Kages, since you were so stubborn. Then go to hell. Feeling the cold, killing intent of Nagato, everyone knew that their lives were coming to an end, because with the defeat of the leader of Amatsukami, no one in the shinobi world can stop Nagato from doing anything. Suddenly, Tsunade let out a soft cry. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw a figure slowly walking toward them from the other side of the arena. The figure was wearing the symbol of Amatsukami, a black cloak with golden edges, and a grimacing mask that symbolized the leader of Amatsukami. 3 generations Tsuchikage froze for a moment, then turned to look at 3 generations Naruto and asked, did you arrange someone to pretend to be the leader of Amatsukami? 3 generations Naruto shook his head blankly. Jiraiya was also a little confused, then secretly sighed. Is it Jishuei and the others pretending to be the leader of Amatsukami? Hey, the real leader of Amatsukami has been defeated. What's the use of pretending to be the leader of Amatsukami? Hey, who is that? Why is there another leader of Amatsukami? Isn't the leader of Amatsukami Otsutsuki Samurai just now? The ninjas who still stayed on the field were confused by the scene in front of them. Some of them couldn't tell whether Otsutsuki Samurai was the leader of Amatsukami or this guy in front of them was the leader of Amatsukami. In the field, Nagato looked at the figure that was slowly walking towards him, and his expression immediately became solemn. Who are you? The person who was slowly walking towards him was naturally Hyojin. After the last attempt of the Kage failed, he could only do it himself. Facing Nagato's question, he said, not bad. Compared to before, you finally look more decent. Nagato's eyes were cold as he exclaimed, you are the real leader of Amatsukami. Hyojin's playful tone immediately evoked Nagato's memories, making him suddenly realize that the person in front of him was probably the real leader of Amatsukami. Following Nagato's exclamation, everyone's eyes focused on Hyojin. First update, please recommend monthly votes. Chapter 1105 is the real leader of Amatsukami. The Kages, including 3 generations Naruto, as well as Tsunade, Jiraiya, and other ninjas were taken aback. After confirming that Otsutsuki Samurai is the leader of Amatsukami, the appearance of another leader of Amatsukami has undoubtedly confused everyone. The reason why people accepted the fact that Otsutsuki Samurai is the leader of Amatsukami is that only Otsutsuki Samurai, who is from the same clan as Sage of 6 Paths, is qualified to be the leader of Amatsukami. But now listening to Nagato's tone, it seems that Otsutsuki Samurai isn't the real leader of Amatsukami, and the mysterious man wearing a black cloak and a devil mask is the real leader. Who is he? In an instant, such a doubt emerged in everyone's mind, and Nagato was no exception. Obviously, the identity of the real leader of Amatsukami was more mysterious than Otsutsuki Tonari, who had just fled in a panic, and was even more unfathomable. Hyojin didn't stop walking as if he didn't care about Nagato's deterrence at all. He said leisurely, although Otsutsuki Samurai is mediocre, but you can defeat him, which means that you are really obedient and diligent in training. Nagato's expression twisted, and he roared, this is not a game, and I'm not a pawn in your hands. Listening to Nagato's angry roar, the Kages around him, as well as Jiraiya and Tsunade, all felt a chill in their hearts. Nagato's reaction was far beyond their expectations, because they can feel a faint trace of timidity from Nagato, which was not there at all. Pawn? Huh, do you even deserve it? Hyojin, who was trying to provoke Nagato, chuckled while carefully observing Nagato's state. The Tenseigan under the devil mask bloomed with magnificent brilliance. On the sidelines, looking at Hyojin, who was strolling forward, Sasuke was full of doubts. He muttered to himself, "Who is he?" On the side, Deidale rubbed his chin and said, "This guy doesn't seem to put Nagato in his eyes." Kimimaro pondered over Haku's strange reaction before he fainted. He felt that Haku seemed to have recognized him. Jishui heaved a long sigh of relief, a calm smile on his face under the mask. When he saw Hyojin appear, he was completely relieved. In his opinion, there was nothing Hyojin couldn't handle. The other side, Itachi was still calmly observing the battlefield. Because he couldn't see through Nagato's Luan-Mu doppelganger, he didn't act hastily just now. And with the appearance of Hyojin, he was even less flustered. In the sky, Little South frowned. She thought that everything was over, but she didn't expect that the leader of Amatsukami would appear, and looking at his posture, it seems that he is the real leader of Amatsukami. Not to mention the reactions of the people on the sidelines. Nagato was only provoked by Hyojin's words, and he was furious. All his attention was focused on Hyojin, and he roared, "This time, I will prove to you that I am the strongest." After roaring, Nagato urged all the Luan-Mu doppelganger to rush toward Hyojin. Not only that, but he also would release ninjutsu on Hyojin. Seeing the excited Nagato used all the Luan-Mu doppelganger at once, Hyojin secretly breathed a sigh of relief and immediately activated Tenseigan chakra mode. Whoosh! In an instant, the light blue Tenseigan chakra wrapped Hyojin's whole body, and then black truth-seeking balls flashed out from between his eyebrows and surrounded him. Then, Hyojin's Tenseigan swept and instantly determined the exact location of the 4 Luan-Mu doppelganger of Nagato. Because he didn't have the Rinnegan system, his Tenseigan couldn't actually see the 4 Luan-Mu doppelganger of Nagato, like the Rinnegan, and could only see a vague outline of the Luan-Mu doppelganger. But because he had absorbed Bai's spirit art chakra, he temporarily had the spirit art perception ability. So with the cooperation of the two, he could easily locate the 4 Luan-Mu doppelganger of Nagato. And almost at the same time, he immediately shot out 4 truth-seeking balls. Whoosh, 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 accompanied by the whistling sound of the wind. The 4 truth-seeking balls transformed into 4 sharp spears, instantly piercing the 4 Luan-Mu doppelganger that pounced on Nagato, nailing the 4 Luan-Mu doppelganger that could change positions at will to the ground. The reason why Hyojin angered Nagato was that he hoped that Nagato would lose his mind and take the lead in activating the Luan-Mu doppelganger to attack. Because only by restricting Nagato's Luan-Mu doppelganger could he effectively cause damage to Nagato. Otherwise, Nagato could use the Luan-Mu doppelganger to constantly change positions and play around with Hyojin. And the limit of Hyojin's control of the truth-seeking balls was only a mere 70 meters. Once it exceeded 70 meters, he wouldn't be able to effectively control the truth-seeking balls, so he could only let Nagato send the Luan-Mu doppelganger to him. Rumble. Just as Hyojin used the 4 truth-seeking balls to pin the 4 Luan-Mu doppelganger of Nagato, a huge wooden dragon rose from the ground and fiercely pounced on him. Looking at the incoming wooden dragon, Hyojin's expression didn't change. With a wave of his hand, the remaining 5 truth-seeking balls flew into his hand, and he muttered softly, "Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion!" In an instant, the 5 ink-colored truth-seeking balls fused together and turned into a dazzling golden sword. Looking at the golden sword that was as dazzling as the sun, everyone's doubts disappeared. They were now completely convinced that this mysterious man dressed as Yama from God's organization was the real leader of God's organization. At this time, Hyojin wasn't in a hurry to attack. Instead, he activated the 8 inner hidden gates and opened the gate of opening, gate of healing, gate of life, gate of pain, and the 5th gate of limit. Swoosh! After opening the 5th gate of limit, Hyojin's entire body was like a stream of light, and he faced the wooden dragon head-on. Rumble! In the blink of an eye, both sides collided, and a loud explosion erupted. If it didn't involve any immortal techniques, the current Nagatos would release was not inferior to first generations. Therefore, The power of the wooden dragon he activated was almost the same as first generation's wooden dragon. They were both powerful wood-release ninjutsu that could subdue 9 tails. However, under the dazzling golden sword in Hyojin's hand, the wooden dragon couldn't resist at all and was instantly cut into pieces from head to tail. Amidst the flying sawdust, Hyojin had already arrived in front of Nagato, and the golden wheel reincarnation explosion in his hand slashed down without hesitation. The second update, I'm begging for recommendation tickets on Monday. It's just a small effort, and I hope that everyone will support me. Also, I'd like to thank all the students who donated today. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1106. Looking at Suijin, who was holding a golden sword that shone like the sun, slashing all the wood dragons, Nagato's eyes were full of shock, and a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. How was this possible? Amidst the bewilderment, a trace of fear quietly spread from the bottom of his heart. He didn't even realize that after his previous defeats, he had subconsciously developed a slight fear of this masked leader of God's organization. At this moment, the brilliant golden light sprinkled down. In this blinding golden light, Nagato, who was in a daze, immediately regained his senses. He subconsciously wanted to switch places with his tomb clones to avoid the attack. However, as soon as he activated the power of the Eye of Samsara, he found that the 4 tomb clones were all affected by the truth-seeking ball and couldn't respond to him normally. Oh no! Nagato panicked. In mid-air, Hyojin, who was slashing down with his sword, saw the panic on Nagato's face and was slightly puzzled. From the battle between Nagato and Otsutsuki Samurai, as well as the battles with the Kage, he found that Nagato's combat skills had improved significantly. His various adaptations were also remarkable. Therefore, he was a little puzzled as to why Nagato showed inexplicable panic when they were fighting. However, it was obviously not the time to look into this. Hyojin suppressed the doubts in his heart and slashed down with a golden wheel reincarnation explosion without the slightest hesitation. Roar! At this moment, the heretic demon statue beside Nagato let out a soul-shaking roar. At the same time, it stretched out its thick arm in front of Nagato to protect him. Clang! Amidst the sound of metal, the golden wheel reincarnation explosion ruthlessly slashed the arm of the heretic demon statue. In just a breath's time, the brilliant golden sword cut through the rough skin of the heretic demon statue and penetrated the muscles of the heretic demon statue's arm. However, the heretic demon statue's body was as sturdy as ever. When the golden sword reached about a quarter of the heretic demon statue's arm, a sharp friction sound that made one's teeth ache rang out, and the momentum of the golden sword gradually stopped. Looking up at the dazzling golden sword hovering not far above his head, Nagato's pupils shrank suddenly, then slowly returned to normal, and he let out a long sigh of relief. The opponent's momentum was so terrifying that he was at a loss for a moment. However, when the heretic demon statue blocked the opponent's attack, he immediately got rid of his previous state of panic. In the distance, the Kage, Jiraiya, and Tsunade all had expressions of regret on their faces. However, Hyojin, who was in the midst of the slash, did not give up easily. The golden wheel reincarnation explosion condensed by only 5 truth-seeking balls was unable to cut through the heretic demon statue. This was something he had already expected. Therefore, when the golden wheel reincarnation explosion was stuck in the arm of the heretic demon statue, he immediately infused the immortal technique chakra that he had absorbed from Bai into the golden wheel reincarnation explosion. Creak! In an instant, the golden sword that had stopped was infused with the immortal technique chakra. With a sharp sound that made one's teeth ache, it moved forward again. What? Seeing this, Nagato's expression froze. Then he suddenly leaped back. The golden wheel reincarnation explosion that had been infused with the immortal technique chakra was advancing faster and faster in the arm of the heretic demon statue. Almost at the same time that Nagato leaped back, The dazzling golden sword cut off the arm of the heretic demon statue that was blocking in front of Nagato. Boom! Amidst the loud explosion and flying dust, the heretic demon statue's arm that had been cut off fell to the ground. Seeing that even the heretic demon statue had been cut off by Hyojin's golden sword, Nagato's face was full of shock and embarrassment. Then, without thinking, he raised both his arms toward Hyojin and mustered all his strength. Shinra Tensei, after continuously breaking through Nagato's samsara clone, would release, and the heretic demon statue, Hyojin had already used up a lot of chakra. One must know that before completing the bloodline fusion ritual and becoming a true bloodline network, it was a huge burden for him to maintain 9 truth-seeking balls for someone who was not at the 6th Daos realm. The chakra that was originally abundant in his body was being consumed at a speed that could be seen with the naked eye. However, he did not show the slightest bit of anxiety. His expression and behavior were extremely calm, as if everything was under control. When he saw Nagato raise both of his arms, he also raised his right arm. Silver Wheel Reincarnation Explosion. In an instant, the brilliant golden sword in his hand disappeared into thin air and was replaced by a fierce storm in his palm. Rumble, Hyojin's Silver Wheel Reincarnation Explosion, which was powered by 5 truth-seeking balls and a part of the Immortal Technique chakra, collided with Nagato's Shinra Tensei in a flash and produced a deafening roar. At this moment, the entire earth seemed to be trembling because of the power of the two people. Not to mention the ordinary ninjas, even the extraordinarily powerful Kage, Jiraiya in immortal mode, and the huge Bunta the Toad were like a small boat in the sea in the quaking and the storm. They were unable to resist and could only drift along with the waves. Roar! Although the huge outer path demon statue kept roaring and struggling, in the end, it was inevitably overturned and drowned in the violent storm. After a while, the smoke and dust that filled the air gradually dissipated. The people who were blown away by the storm and fell to the ground coughed and crawled out of the pile of dirt. Ignoring the embarrassment on their bodies, they all looked at the battlefield. In the middle of the battlefield, Hyojin, who was wrapped in the light blue Tenseigan chakra, quietly floated in the air. It seemed that the collapse of the sky and the earth didn't affect him at all. On the other side of the battlefield, the outer path demon statue was on the ground, and Nagato was pushed back dozens of meters from his previous position. The red cloud suit on his body was in a mess, and there were many wounds on his face and body. Not to mention the state of both sides, just the fact that the leader of Amatsukami didn't move at all while Nagato was pushed back dozens of meters during the confrontation made everyone realize that Nagato was obviously at a disadvantage in the confrontation just now. The leader of Amatsukami is so strong. After releasing the In Seal and activating the Hyakuho technique, Tsunade, who had fully recovered from her injuries, was shocked. From a short confrontation just now, she had a deep understanding of Nagato's strength. It was a kind of strength that was impossible to resist. It was not something that ordinary ninjas could fight against. No, it should be said that even Kage-class ninjas couldn't fight against him. However, such a powerful Nagato seemed so powerless in front of the real leader of Amatsukami. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 1107. Obviously, Tsunade wasn't the only one who had this thought. The exhausted Sandaime Hokage was also surprised at this time. He always thought that even if the leader of Amatsukami was stronger than Nagato, he shouldn't be much stronger. Both sides were roughly at the same level. Otherwise, Nagato wouldn't have been able to escape from the previous confrontation. But judging from the scene in front of him, the leader of Amatsukami seems to have an overwhelming advantage. Who the hell is he? At this moment, 3 generations Naruto's heart was filled with a strong desire to find out more. He is very clear that the mysterious Amatsukami and the legendary Otsutsuki samurai who is related to the Sage of the Six Paths are all related to the leader of Amatsukami in front of him. As long as the identity of the leader of Amatsukami is clear, then all the truth will be revealed. On the other side, under the protection of Jishui, Sasuke and the others once again safely survived the storm. Looking at the leader of Amatsukami, who easily suppressed Nagato in the field, Sasuke, who had just awakened his Manjikyu Sharingan not long ago, felt that something was surging in his heart. It was a mixture of shock, envy, unwillingness, and a little annoyance. Damn it! I have clearly awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan and become the strongest in the clan. Why am I still not a match for these people? Why? In the Uchiha clan, which can be regarded as the elite of the shinobi world, Sasuke felt that he, who had awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan, should be special. Kuroto felt that he was destined to shoulder the responsibility of reviving the Uchiha clan and bringing the Uchiha clan to the peak of the shinobi world with such power and glory. But what he saw and heard today was like a blow to his head. It made him realize that the strength he was so proud of in front of the true strongest of the shinobi world, not to mention controlling the situation, he didn't even have the room to intervene. Perceiving Sasuke's mental fluctuations, Jishui patted his shoulder and said, "You are still young." As he spoke, Shursui turned his head and looked at the light blue figure floating in midair with a look of admiration. Sasuke clenched his fists and stared at the light blue figure in the air. On the field, Hyojin slightly tilted his head and looked at Nagato with interest. In the confrontation just now, the silver wheel reincarnation explosion condensed by the 5 truth-seeking balls and the sage chakra obviously suppressed Nagato's Shinra Tensei, not only giving Hyojin the upper hand, but also injuring Nagato. As a result, only half of Nagato's Akatsuki Red Cloud suit was hanging on his body, and the exposed half of his body was steaming. Many wounds were quickly recovering in the steam. TSK Tisk. Such a powerful regenerative ability made Hyojin very envious. It could be said that Nagato's physique was no different from Hashirama's, and he had almost completely absorbed Hashirama's cells. And in terms of strength, Nagato had the Rinnegan, and Hashirama had the powerful Sage technique. Both of them were close to the 6th-path level. Panting heavily, Nagato looked at Hyojin floating in the air, and his face darkened. He thought to himself, he is so much stronger than that Otsutsuki samurai. When he was fighting against Otsutsuki samurai, they were almost evenly matched. But when he used Shinra Tensei to fight Hyojin, he was clearly at a disadvantage. So based on his experience, he judged that Hyojin's chakra was stronger than his and Otsutsuki samurai's. And after coming to this conclusion, he was even more afraid of Hyojin. Naturally, Hyojin didn't know what Nagato was thinking. He remained calm and slowly descended from the air while analyzing the battle just now. The Sage technique is better than I thought. After the battle, just now, Hyojin found that the Sage technique chakra had a very significant effect on his various ocular techniques. It could obviously increase the power and endurance of the Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion and the Silver Wheel Reincarnation Explosion. It was just that the Sage technique chakra absorbed from Haku was limited, and after the 2 rounds of consumption, he had almost used up all of it. And it wasn't just the Sage technique chakra. In the case of maintaining the 9 truth-seeking balls, he used the Golden Wheel Reincarnation Explosion and the Silver Wheel Reincarnation Explosion. His Tenseigan chakra was also seriously consumed. If he continued to fight, he would either have to release the Ein Seal and consume the accumulated chakra over the years, or he could only resonate with the giant Tenseigan that belonged to him on the sea and draw chakra from it. After all, the dragon vein is still in Itachi's body, and his chakra can't be compared to Nagato, who has the Uzumaki, the sage body of the 1,000 hands, and the outer path demon statue, and the 5-tailed beast. Unless it was a last resort, he didn't want to consume the accumulated chakra in the Ein Seal. Otsutsuki Samurai's whereabouts were unknown now, and he didn't want to resonate with his giant Tenseigan, because he wasn't sure if Otsutsuki Samurai could use the giant Tenseigan on the moon to track his giant Tenseigan. Despite all the inconveniences, Hyojin didn't show it on his face. He walked towards Nagato at a steady pace, looking like he was going to win. He asked casually, "Is that all?" I'm not interested in you anymore. Hand over the Rinnegan. Nagato suddenly looked serious, then put his hands together and shouted, "Would release, flower tree world descend." Rumble. In an instant, the ground shook violently once again. Then, thick trees were uprooted from the ground, growing wildly amidst the deafening noise. Hey, Hyojin smiled gently and raised his arm again. Silver wheel reincarnation explosion. Boom! A huge storm swept out and instantly raised the sea of trees that grew from the ground to the ground. The chakra that was about to be exhausted did not affect Hyojin's judgment. Although the chakra consumed a lot of energy, it instantly solved Nagato's would release. Swish! Then, Hyojin's figure flashed and rushed in front of Nagato. The storm in his hand, once again, turned into a dazzling golden sword, stabbing at Nagato's chest. Nagato was caught off guard, and he only had time to move his body slightly. In an instant, the golden sword in Hyojin's hand passed through and pierced Nagato's left shoulder. Drip, drip, soon blood flowed out of the wound and dripped on the ground. Nagato looked at Hyojin and shouted angrily, Why did you stop me? Only I can bring eternal peace to the ninja world." The second update is here, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. In addition, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you. Chapter 1108. When Nagato roared in anger, a powerful repulsive force came out along with the roar and instantly attacked Hyojin, pushing him back more than 10 meters. After stabilizing his body, Hyojin's right hand slowly fell and calmly removed the golden wheel reincarnation explosion in his hand. With the removal of the golden wheel reincarnation explosion, the 5 true seeking balls that condensed the golden wheel reincarnation explosion were also quietly dispersed by him, leaving only the 4 true seeking balls that pinned Nagato's 4 tomb incarnations. With the burden removed, Hyojin's body suddenly relaxed. For him who is not a 6-path incarnation, the truth-seeking ball is both a sharp weapon and a burden. Maintaining 3 or 4 at a time is not a big deal for him, but maintaining 9 at a time is a bit difficult for him. Then, Hyojin looked at the wound on Nagato's shoulder and said with a smile, "Am I stopping you?" Nagato didn't seem to care about the wound on his shoulder and shouted excitedly, "If it weren't for you, things would have progressed in the direction I expected, and the shinobi world would have achieved true peace." Staring at the wound on Nagato's shoulder that was gradually recovering in the steam, Hyojin's sapphire blue Tenseigan flashed with a trace of solemnity, but his mouth didn't show it, and said casually, "You want to become the god of the shinobi world, suppress everything with pain and fear, and let the entire shinobi world live under your shadow. Regardless of whether your idea is right or wrong, there's one thing that you are mistaken about." Nagato immediately asked, "What am I mistaken about?" Hyojin shook his head and said, "It's not that I am stopping you, but defeating everyone is the necessary condition for you to achieve your dream. If you're not the indisputable strongest, then why should everyone live under your shadow?" Nagato was startled. Hyojin said indifferently, "So you can't beat me. It's not that I'm trying to stop you. It's just that you are not qualified to set the rules for the shinobi world." Hyojin scoffed at Nagato's use of pain and fear to maintain peace, and Uchiha Madara, Uchiha Obsidian's Eye of the Moon project, to create false peace with illusion. It was just like how he objected to the Naruto clan's annihilation of the Uchiha clan. If there's only one shinobi village in the entire shinobi world, it is understandable that Naruto clan's annihilation of the Uchiha clan is difficult to control, but there are a lot of shinobi villages in the shinobi world. Among them, Cloud, Rock, Mist, and Sancrypsis all have the ability to challenge Mai. In this case of external competition, it is undoubtedly inappropriate to annihilate the Uchiha clan as the most powerful village. In the same way, Nagato's plan, Uchiha Madara, and Uchiha Obsidian's plan all sound reasonable at first glance. It seems that as long as they do it, peace will be at hand. But in this universe, there is not only the shinobi world, there's also the threat from the stars. Not to mention others, Just those Otsutsuki who travel in the universe and plunder the vitality of one planet after another have long been eyeing the fertile land of the shinobi world. If Nagato's plan, Uchiha Madara, and Uchiha Obsidian's plan is realized, peace can indeed come for a short period of time. But in this way, the people in the shinobi world will either live in fear like a pool of stagnant water without any vitality, or become human puppets hanging on trees, living a befuddled life all day long. All the progress and exploration in the shinobi world will be stagnant, and the shinobi world will lose the opportunity to enter the stars. The length of peace only depends on the time when the Otsutsuki in the stars attack. Maybe the shinobi world can enjoy 10 years, 20 years, or even longer peace, but those Otsutsuki who have drained the vitality of a planet with all kinds of strange abilities will eventually come. Once the Otsutsuki attack, as the strongest individual in the shinobi world, whether it is Nagato, Uchiha Madara, or Uchiha Obsidian, as long as they are careless and defeated, the shinobi world will be finished, and everyone will follow the shinobi world to destruction. Peace is beautiful and desirable, but if it comes at the cost of losing the spirit of exploring the unknown, then such peace is only a slow poison in the eyes of Hyojin. Therefore, Hyojin has not been paranoid about eliminating disputes, because moderate disputes and reasonable competition are important means to maintain one's own competitiveness. Although the shinobi world has experienced several senseless wars in the years since the establishment of the shinobi villages, causing many tragedies, but it is also because of the stimulation of war that ninjutsu is constantly improving, especially the creation and progress of medical ninjutsu, which made eye replacement, cell transplantation, and so on become a reality, so that ninjas have a deeper understanding of what power is. Yondaime, Orochimaru, Tsunade, Hiriko, and Shino, all of these people, without exception, because of the pressure of war and competition, have devoted themselves to the research and development of various ninjutsu, secret techniques, and forbidden techniques. Especially Yondaime, Orochimaru, and Hiriko, they even broke through the boundaries of morality and developed Edo Tensei Jutsu, which can confuse life and death, Undead Tensei Jutsu, and Onajurai Jutsu, which can devour other people's Kekkei Genkai Jutsu. The establishment of the shinobi villages in the past few decades is the cruelest era in the history of the shinobi world. The 3 shinobi wars destroyed countless countries, families, and people's lives, but ironically, it is precisely in the decades of the establishment of the shinobi villages that various technologies have advanced by leaps and bounds. Eye replacement, cell transplantation became possible, body cloning, and life cloning are no longer an illusion, which deeply illustrates the coexistence of suffering and progress. Just like Nagato, who only pays attention to suffering and ignores progress, or only pays attention to progress and ignores suffering, none of these are desirable. This is also the biggest difference between Hyojin and Nagato. The power of the Rinnegan made Nagato lose himself in it, and he was unknowingly influenced by arrogance, thinking that he can change the shinobi world with his own strength and eliminate suffering. Although Hyojin has the Tenseigan, he has always maintained a humble and inquisitive attitude, because he is very clear that there is still a lot of knowledge that he doesn't understand, and there are still many shortcomings. The Tenseigan is only the starting point, not the end. Above the Tenseigan, there is the real 6-path level, and above the 6-path level, there is the even stronger Kekkei Genkai net. Even with Kekkei Genkai net, it is difficult to say that it has reached the end, because in addition to the 7 chakra attributes, there is a more primitive and vast natural energy system, and this is a powerful force that is not inferior to the chakra system. It is precisely because he knows where he is that Hyojin has always remained objective and sober. He founded Emetsukami not because he really thinks of himself as a god, but because he has been working hard to become an omnipotent and immortal god. The first update is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 1109. Hyojin's plain words lingered in Nagato's ears, making his face extremely embarrassed, because he knew that Hyojin was not wrong. It was not Hyojin who was stopping him, but he did not have the ability to suppress everything and bring peace to the shinobi world. And Hyojin paid attention to the changes in Nagato's expression while carefully observing the state of Nagato's body. In just a short time, the wound on Nagato's shoulder that was pierced by the Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion had gradually healed. From the appearance, there was only a scar of varying depth left. It must be known that Hyojin's Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion was not an ordinary attack. When Shinichi defected and met Hyojin, he tried to use his Manjikyu Sharingan's pupil technique, Heavenly Guard, to lock on the state, attack for attack, and fight against Hyojin, who had entered the Tenseigan chakra mode. As a result, Hyojin's Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion not only instantly cut through his Susanoo, but also greatly shortened the duration of his Heavenly Guard, causing him to suffer the first crushing defeat after awakening the Manjikyu Sharingan. This alone was enough to prove that the Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion was not limited to the pure physical level. But even so, Nagato's shoulder that was pierced by the Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion recovered in the blink of an eye. If it wasn't for the blood that was sprinkled all over the ground, Hyojin was even in a trance, wondering if he had stabbed Nagato just now. Was Hashirama like this back then? Hyojin didn't know why, but he suddenly felt a little sympathy for Madara Uchiha, and even felt a little puzzled about why Hashirama chose to use Kunai in exchange for Madara Uchiha's trust. Kunai, this kind of thing, can it really kill the first generation? Maybe Madara is just taking advantage of it. Then Hyojin glanced at the restless heretic demon statue not far away. His eyes narrowed slightly, because the arm of the heretic demon statue that was severed by his Golden Wheel reincarnation explosion had also recovered. Like the tailed beasts, they have some kind of recovery and resurrection ability. Kuroto knew very well that he couldn't destroy the Gekido Golem right now, because if it was that easy to destroy, the Sage of Six Paths could have destroyed it once and for all thousands of years ago. There was no need to waste time and effort to seal it on the moon. The only reason they chose to seal it was because the Six Paths Immortal Brothers didn't have any good ideas on how to deal with this thing. After observing this, Hyojin remained calm and collected, not revealing any of his emotions. On the battlefield, there was no doubt that he had the absolute advantage. It seemed like he was completely suppressing Nagato, and with just a few attacks, he had successfully injured Nagato. But in fact, his Tenseigan chakra and Immortal Technique chakra had been used up, which was the price he had to pay for crushing Nagato. On the other hand, Nagato had indeed used up a lot of his chakra after going through a series of battles. But because of the heretic demon statue and the five-tailed beasts, he was far from reaching his limit. At least he could still fight for half a day. So contrary to the performance on the battlefield, the real situation was that Hyojin was actually at a certain disadvantage. But under Hyojin's mask, there wasn't much worry on his face, because he had achieved his goal. Nagato was wavering. Frankly speaking, Nagato wasn't a strong-willed person, and there was a hidden tendency to self-destruct in his heart. All his efforts, to a certain extent, were more like fulfilling the wish of Yahiko, who had died in his hands, rather than for himself. So as the situation progressed, his willpower, which was not tenacious by nature, was obviously unable to bear the burden. The coldness on the surface is just to hide the weakness in his heart. This was the conclusion Hyojin came to after combining the fact that Nagato was killed by Naruto in the original space and time, as well as his careful observation during this battle and careful analysis of Nagato's emotional fluctuations. So, Hyojin, who had almost used up his chakra, took a step forward, approached Nagato with great momentum, and raised his hand to condense a truth-seeking ball. Do you know what this is? On the opposite side, Nagato's attention was quickly attracted by the truth-seeking ball in Hyojin's hand, and his face was full of fear. Hyojin chuckled and said, "It's called the truth-seeking ball. It's the result of combining 7 different types of chakra, yin-yang, and 5 elements." Truth-seeking ball, Nagato muttered. "You should be familiar with this. Isn't your black stick the product of two types of chakra? Yin-yang? With a smile, Hyojin said, and the truth-seeking ball can be seen as the advancement of the black stick. The approaching Hyojin and the truth-seeking ball in Hyojin's hand gave Nagato a great deal of pressure. He slowly lowered his body and naturally placed himself in a position of weakness, ready to fight to the death. Swoosh at this time, Conan, who was in the air, landed beside Nagato and asked with concern, "Nagato, are you all right?" Nagato's eyes were still fixed on the approaching Hyojin, but he said to Conan, "Don't worry about me, go." As soon as he heard Nagato's tone, Conan realized that Nagato had no confidence in winning, and said hurriedly, "Since you have misjudged his strength, there is no need to continue fighting with him. Let's retreat first." Listening to Conan's persuasion to Nagato, Hyojin deliberately let out a disdainful chuckle, and then continued the previous topic. The truth-seeking ball is also a watershed. A ninja who can condense a truth-seeking ball with his own strength is at the six-path level, which is the level of Sage of Six-Path. Six-path level! Nagato and Conan were shocked when they heard this. Not only that, but the Kage, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and the others in the distance were also shocked. Sandaime-sama muttered under his breath, "Six-path level? Is this the level above the Kage?" Jiraiya said, This means that the leader of Amatsukume is at the same level as the legendary Sage of Six-Path. Fukasaku Sage, who was on Jiraiya's shoulder, gently nodded. Well, apart from the Sage of Six-Path and Otsutsuki Azura, who inherited the shinobi sect, no one else in the shinobi world has been able to condense a truth-seeking ball for the past 1,000 years. Shima Sage added, but this is also the first time we have heard of the term six-path level. Fukasaku and Shima Sage didn't have much contact with the Sage of Six-Path. The one who had a close relationship with the Sage of Six-Path was actually the Great Toad Sage, who didn't manage the affairs of Mount Mayaboku anymore. 3 generations of Tsuchikage said with a gloomy face, if he is at the same level as the Sage of Six-Path, then wouldn't he be a true god? 4 generations of Kazekage said with a sigh, no wonder his organization is called Amatsukume. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 1110. Condensing the truth-seeking ball is only one of the standards of the six-path level, and the six-path level is the same as the Kage level. It's a relatively broad concept without a very clear standard. For example, Hyojin's pseudo-six-path level in the Tenseigan chakra mode and the peak of the six-path level Sage of the six-path can both be regarded as six-path level in general, but the real strength between the two is like heaven and earth, completely not on the same level. But here, Hyojin deliberately confused this concept, so much so that everyone present, including Nagato, was more or less shocked, and their fear of Hyojin also increased a lot. Obviously, when Hyojin proposed the concept of six-path level and explained what it means to crush Nagato, everyone accepted it without any doubt, because the scene of Hyojin crushing Nagato was witnessed by everyone, defeating Otsutsuki Sarai, who is also the Sage of the Six-Path, and sweeping several Kage and Jiraiya of the Sannin. The invincible Nagato of Tsunade was almost powerless in front of the leader of Amatsukume. This fact undoubtedly confirms the concept of the six-path level proposed by the leader of Amatsukume. Six-path level means immortals, means gods. No matter how powerful a ninja is, as long as they haven't reached this six-path level, then they're just a lowly mortal in front of a six-path level. As the strongest ninja in the world, the leader of Amatsukume is a six-path level, while the leader of Akatsuki, Nagato, is just a mortal. After realizing that it's impossible for him to defeat Hyojin, Nagato's heart was even more shaken, and the huge chakra around his body erupted in a disorderly manner, causing Conan, who was beside him, to take a few steps back before she could barely stand. Even Hyojin, who was more than 10 meters away from Nagato, felt his heart palpitate instinctively because of the enormous chakra on Nagato's body, let alone Minami, who was very close to him. At this time, the emotional Nagato roared, "You are obviously so strong. Why do you sit back and watch the endless wars in the shinobi world?" Why? Hyojin was startled. He did not expect that Nagato would suddenly ask such a question. He smiled bitterly in his heart and said, "Do you think I don't want to stop it? I'm cannon fodder myself, and almost died in the war." This question was also what Hyojin wanted to ask Immortal Hexapath. He really can't understand why the Sage of the Six Paths would sit back and watch his two sons fight endlessly, causing chaos in the shinobi world. Just because of their family's matters, the shinobi world has fallen into a bloody disaster. Seeing Hyojin's silence, the anger in Nagato's heart continued to accumulate, and he sneered, "I'm afraid that in the eyes of sage like you, everything in the shinobi world is just a game." Feeling Nagato's fighting spirit reignited again, Hyojin suddenly realized that if he didn't answer this question well, then it's very likely that he will end up making a fool of himself. So, he strengthened Nagato's will, because Nagato is an orphan who lost everything in the war. He is someone who deeply understands the pain of war. Thinking of this, Hyojin said indifferently, "Aren't I trying to quell the war you started? What else do you think I'm doing?" Nagato's face twisted and he roared, "What about the previous wars? What about the Second and Third Shinobi World War? Do you know I lost in the war? My country, my clan, my family, my best friends, all of them were destroyed in the war. Where were you as a sage at that time? Why didn't you come out to stop it?" Listening to Nagato's hoarse accusation, the Kage present all looked ashamed. They are very clear that their respective shinobi villages can't escape the responsibility of the previous Shinobi World War, and listening to Nagato's accusation with their own ears, they also deeply realize that the terrifying enemy in front of them, who almost destroyed all their shinobi villages, was created by the wars they started in the past. In the face of Nagato's accusation, just like the Kage, Hyojin also found it difficult to answer. However, the reason why he found it difficult to answer is that at that time, he was either not even a shinobi, or he was just a cannon fodder. If he hadn't hugged Orochimaru's thigh in time, the grass on his grave would have been as tall as a person. For a time, the whole battlefield fell into a strange silence. Except for Nagato's heavy and rapid breathing, no other sound could be heard, because neither Hyojin nor the Kage could answer Nagato's accusation. In this strange silence, Konan, who was next to Nagato, suddenly moved. He grabbed Nagato and flew away from the battlefield. His decisive action shocked the Kage, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and the others. They looked at each other in dismay. While flying away, Nagato asked, "Konan, what are you doing?" Konan didn't care about the chakra consumption as he flew as fast as he could while explaining, "Didn't you notice that this is our only chance to escape? If we don't take this opportunity to escape, we won't be able to escape." Nagato froze for a moment, then immediately looked at the battlefield that was getting farther and farther away, and found that the leader of Amitsukami was standing quietly on the battlefield and didn't chase after them. Konan said, "He's feeling guilty." Nagato murmured, "Guilty?" Konan looked back at the battlefield and said, "Maybe it's because we couldn't stop the previous war. As an immortal, he seems to feel guilty facing you." There was no doubt that Konan mistook Hyojin's hesitation as his guilt toward Nagato, so he decisively left the battlefield with Nagato. Nagato was silent for a moment, then said, "Konan, do our efforts really mean anything?" Konan nodded without hesitation. "Of course it means something. The high and mighty immortals can't understand our pain, and they can't understand the cruelty of war. I only believe in you." "But I'm just a mortal," Nagato said dejectedly. Konan looked at Nagato and said firmly, "No, you are God." Nagato was a little confused. "I am God. It's not a coincidence that you have the same eyes as the Sage of Six Paths. In the future, you will become a real immortal like the Sage of Six Paths and the leader of Amitsukami, a real god." Looking at Nagato and Konan running away, Hyojin secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Just now, he was even ready to lift the In seal and resonate with the giant Tenseigan in the Sky Fortress to fight with Nagato in the worst-case scenario. Fortunately, Conan's decisiveness prevented this meaningless battle. When I complete the Yang release clone and perform the bloodline fusion ritual, I can get rid of the Akatsuki organization once and for all. Kuroda believed that after his performance, Nagato wouldn't act rashly before he could condense the truth-seeking ball. His Yang release clone was already in the process of cultivating. The fastest would be a few months, and the slowest would be a year. At that time, he would be able to break through the Kekiai web. At that time, he would be able to eliminate Nagato without any risk. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, thank you to all the students who tipped today. Chapter 1111. Whoosh. Whoosh, a cool breeze blew across the desolate battlefield, rolling up a gust of sand. In the sandstorm, the four black spears formed by the truth-seeking jade that pinned Nagato's Luan-Moot doppelganger began to gradually dissipate and eventually turned into powder and disappeared without a trace. And with the dissipation of the truth-seeking balls, Nagato's four tomb clones also disappeared silently. Because of the existence of Hyojin, the Kage didn't act rashly, nor did they chase after Nagato and Conan, who were retreating, because they know very well that as long as the leader of Amatsukami doesn't make a move, Nagato is still the strongest person in the shinobi world, a terrifying existence that they can't contend with even if they join forces. As for why the leader of Amatsukami didn't chase after Nagato and take back the Rinnegan in Nagato's eye socket, they, like Conan, think that the leader of Amatsukami felt guilty because of Nagato's accusation, so his heart softened. This is very understandable, because as Kage, they also felt guilty when facing Nagato's accusation. And compared to the other Kage, the 3 generations Naruto is undoubtedly more guilty. One must know that Maya arranged for people to disguise as members of Amatsukami without the consent of Amatsukami in advance. Now that the real leader of Amatsukami is here, and it has been confirmed that the other party is a sage of the same level as the legendary sage of Six Path, even someone as experienced as him is a little nervous at this moment. Jiraiya, as the direct executor of Amatsukami, is even more nervous, and his face is full of nervousness. At this time, Itachi, who has been hiding in the dark, pondered for a moment, then changed his attire of Amatsukami's Homusubi into the appearance of Naruto Hyojin. Then his figure flickered and appeared on the battlefield. Using the identity of 5th generation Naruto as Hyojin, he broke the awkwardness and said to the real Hyojin, "This time, it's all thanks to you. Our 5 great shinobi villages will pay the corresponding reward to your organization." Yes, Kuroda nodded as if he didn't care. With Itachi's appearance, the tense atmosphere immediately eased up a lot. Kage, Tsunade, Jiraiya, and the others gathered one after another. At this time, Suijin glanced at Shusui's squad, who was also dressed in Amatsukami's uniform with great interest. 3 generations Naruto hurriedly explained, "I'm very sorry, because I couldn't contact you. I made the decision to disguise the ninjas in the village as members of your organization, hoping to use the power of your organization to delay the sudden attack launched by the Akatsuki. If any adverse impact is caused to your organization, our Mai is willing to take all the responsibility and compensate." Jiraiya also chimed in, "I'm very sorry." If the senior members of the village were only afraid of the leader of Amatsukami before, then after Hyojin threw out the concept of 6-path level and personally demonstrated the power of 6-path level, the attitude of the senior members of the village changed from fear to respect. Even the 4 generations Lei Ing and 4 generations of Kazekage, who didn't personally participate in this matter at this moment, when facing Hyojin, there was a trace of nervousness in their tone. Because in their eyes, the leader of Amatsukami wearing a demon mask has already been equated with the legendary sage of the 6 paths. Hyojin didn't mention this matter anymore. After all, with his current status, it's not suitable for him to fuss about such things. So he said, "We'll talk about this later. You should go and take a look at the human pillars of my village first." The expressions of the several Kage became serious when they heard this, especially the 3 generations Tsuchikage and 4 generations Laying. Recapturing the human pillars that were kidnapped by the Akatsuki organization is an important goal of the two of them. It's just that the impact they received just now was too great, coupled with the fact that Nagato just retreated not long ago. So they didn't think about the human pillars for a while. Now that they got Hyojin's reminder, they immediately nodded to Hyojin, then flashed towards the direction of my village. At this time, Hyojin also glanced at the direction of the village. When Nagato retreated, he faintly felt that the human pillars that were sealed by Nagato and the Tensei have been freed, but Nagato was still retreating, so he was worried that his unnecessary actions would arouse Nagato's suspicion and cause Nagato to return. So he restrained his impulse and stayed on the battlefield. Therefore, he is very skeptical about whether the my ninjas left in the village have the ability to hold back the 5 human pillars that Nagato made into the 6 paths of pain. After all, almost all of the high-level combat power of the 5 villages are gathered on the battlefield. Not long after, Jishui's team arrived in front of everyone. Except for Haku, who fainted, the eyes of the other members of the team all focused on Hyojin. Among them, Jishui's eyes were the most calm, while the others, including Sasuke, looked at Hyojin with some evasive eyes. Obviously, in the face of the real leader of Amatsukami, they, who were pretending to be members of Amatsukami, were a little uneasy. After glancing at Sasuke, Deidale, and Kimimaro, Hyojin didn't say anything and directly left the battlefield in front of everyone. Looking at the place where Hyojin disappeared, Sasuke secretly made up his mind. One day, I will also become a 6-path shinobi. Seeing that Hyojin left, the 3 generations Naruto was relieved and quickly said to everyone, "Hurry, let's also return to the village. We must ensure the safety of the human pillars on Nagato's side." After leaving the battlefield, Nagato and Konan flew hundreds of miles away before landing on the ground to take a breather. Looking in the direction of Mai, Konan said, "The enemy shouldn't be chasing us." Nagato, who was still immersed in the failure just now, didn't respond to Konan, but stood quietly in the same place, his face full of confusion. Swish! Suddenly, a figure landed nearby. Konan immediately became vigilant, and Nagato also looked up. "It's me." The figure walked out of the shade of the tree and slowly walked towards Nagato. Seeing that the figure that suddenly appeared was none other than Sasori's puppet, Hiriko, and the voice that came out was also Sasori's voice, Konan's vigilance dropped a little, and Nagato directly withdrew his gaze. Hiriko's puppet quickly came in front of Nagato and reported, "The Mist's operation failed because of Amatsukami's interference. We couldn't catch the Mizukichi." Konan wanted to ask why Sasori didn't personally come to report, but then he remembered that Hiriko's puppet had the rapid release Kekkei Genkai, and its speed was far faster than ordinary ninjas, so he felt that it was normal for Sasori to send Hiriko's puppet to report. As for Nagato, he didn't seem to care about the content of Sasori's report at all. At this time, a twisted whirlpool appeared out of thin air, and then Obsidian walked out of the whirlpool. Obsidian's appearance immediately made Konan vigilant again, and he quietly stood in front of Nagato to protect him. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 11-12. After stepping out of the twisting vortex, Obsidian glanced at Nagato behind Konan and said in a mocking tone, "Sure enough, it failed again." Konan frowned and said coldly, "Humph, didn't you also fail on your side? You have consumed so many people in the organization, but in the end, you have no right to mock us here." "Is that so?" With a chuckle, Obsidian continued, "You don't have to worry about the Jinchuriki. I have already received it." Obsidian, who mastered the space-time ninjutsu, and Hyojin rushed back almost at the same time as Mai, and unlike Hyojin, who was busy putting out fires everywhere, his goal has always been the Jinchuriki. So at the moment when Nagato was defeated, he took all 5 Jinchuriki that had just escaped from the Kabaka Tensei into his Kamui space. "What?" Konan was taken aback and immediately turned his head to look at Nagato. After the Jinchuriki was made into the 6 Paths of Pain by Nagato, it is basically equivalent to an extension of Nagato's body. So the owner of the 6 Paths of Pain should be the most clear about the situation of the 6 Paths of Pain. Nagato did not respond to Conan's doubts, obviously still immersed in the haze of the defeat just now. Conan sighed and immediately turned his head to Obsidian and said sternly, "Hand over the Jinchuriki. It belongs to Nagato." Although he felt a trace of hostility from Obsidian, because of the timely retreat this time, Nagato's state was still good, so Conan was very tough and was not afraid of Obsidian. Obsidian looked at Nagato with interest and said, "Is he still qualified to take charge of the organization like this?" Xiaonan's eyes turned cold. "You want to rebel?" As soon as Conan's voice fell, the Hiruhi puppet standing next to Nagato unleashed chakra and activated swift release and steel release at the same time. Its body became extremely light, and its pale skin turned black as it assumed a fighting stance against the Obsidian. Nagato also shifted his gaze to the Obsidian, his confused eyes regaining some clarity. However, just like Conan, Nagato doesn't put Obsidian in his eyes. Although he admits that he is no match for Amatsukumi's leader, he has absolute confidence in dealing with Obsidian, who only has a pair of Manjikyu Sharingan. Not to mention that Conan and Sasori's puppets are by his side, the combat power of the two sides is not on the same level at all. Looking at Nagato, Obsidian said calmly, "Since you have lost confidence, why don't you give me the Rinnegan and let me fulfill your wish?" A trace of doubt flashed in Nagato's eyes. He didn't expect that Obsidian would really be so bold as to want his Rinnegan. Swish, suddenly, the Manjikyu Sharingan in Obsidian's eye sockets flashed with a strange brilliance, and then a twisted vortex appeared out of thin air on the Hiruhi puppet in front of Nagato. "How dare you?" Conan shouted, instantly spread her wings, flew into the air, and controlled the detonation talismans to attack Obsidian. Seeing Sasori's Hiruhi puppet in front of him quickly distorting and deforming under Obsidian's cane, Nagato's face suddenly became gloomy. He raised his hand and was ready to launch Shinra Tensei towards Obsidian to break the Kamui and save Sasori's puppet. But just when Nagato was about to launch Shinra Tensei, the Hiruhi puppet that was distorting under the Kamui suddenly attacked and accurately attacked Nagato's eye sockets. Because it has already launched rapid release and steel release before, the Hiruhi puppet at this moment has reached the peak of the shinobi world, whether in terms of speed or strength. Coupled with the fact that Nagato was in a trance at this time, he was completely unguarded against the Hiruhi puppet around him, and even Obsidian's betrayal this time was more surprised than angry. Therefore, before he could react, Nagato felt pain in his eyes, and the Rinnegan in his eye sockets were easily removed by the Hiruhi puppet. Under the stimulation of the severe pain, Nagato instinctively counterattacked. A number of wooden stakes broke out of the ground and instantly entangled the Hiruhi puppet. At this time, Conan also noticed the change in the field, and in anger, she jumped from the air towards the Hiruhi puppet that was bound by the wood release, trying to recapture Nagato's Rinnegan. Whoosh! At this moment, the twisting whirlpool had completely swallowed the Hiriko puppet, and even the wooden stakes that were entangled in the Hiriko puppet were transferred into Obito's Kamui space. Obsidian, who had completed the Kamui space, breathed a sigh of relief and immediately entered the state of nothingness, saying, "Nagato, you can't bear such a mission, so let me do it." Conan shouted loudly, "You despicable villain, return Nagato's Rinnegan." Obsidian's face showed a hint of playfulness. "Nagato, do you really think this pair of Rinnegan is yours?" Nagato, who had just lost his eyes, and his face was covered with 2 lines of blood tears, was stunned. "At this point, there is no need to hide it from you anymore." Spreading his hands, Obsidian said, "Nagato, you don't have to feel angry, because this pair of Rinnegan does not belong to you at all, but belongs to Uchiha Madara." Before his death, Uchiha Madara took a fancy to the special constitution of the Uzumaki clan, so he secretly transplanted his Rinnegan to you, hoping to borrow your body to nourish these eyes, and at the same time, to use the reincarnation nature technique to resurrect him at the right time. With that, Obsidian pointed to himself. "And I was sent by Uchiha Madara to monitor you." Nagato and Conan were both stunned when they learned the truth. They always thought that this pair of Rinnegan was a gift from heaven, but they never thought that it was just a plan of Uchiha Madara. Obsidian continued. "The Rinnegan is the product of the combination of the power of the Uchiha clan and the Senju clan. As a member of the Uzumaki clan, it is impossible for you to be born with the Rinnegan. I guess you should also have doubts about this kind of thing." Nagato looked relieved. "It turns out that I am not destined to save the ninja world. You have had a chance." Staring at Nagato, Obsidian said, "Madara Uchiha did use you, but at the same time, he also gave you the power to change the ninja world. You, who got a pair of Rinnegan, are the most likely person to succeed, but you did not grasp this opportunity. So let me do it now." Nagato asked, "Then why did you never mention to me about the resurrection of Uchiha Madara?" Obsidian said in a lonely tone, "Because I don't want to be someone else's pawn." It is not so much that Obsidian was ordered by Madara Uchiha to monitor Nagato. It is better to say that Obsidian deliberately approached Nagato for his own ambition. Madara Uchiha's seemingly brilliant arrangement, in fact, was completely ruined at the moment of his death. The first update is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 11:13. After the initial surprise, Conan became furious. "So, you have been using us to collect tailed beasts." Nagato also seemed to understand something, and asked with a gloomy expression, "Yahiko's death was also planned by you?" Obsidian did not deny it, because he did participate in Yahiko's death. Those former members of Akatsuki who rushed to Yahiko and Nagato were killed by him. Therefore, Yahiko and Nagato were ambushed by Hanzo and Danzo. And the reason why he did this is very simple. Because if Yahiko, who believes in justice as his creed, is in charge of Akatsuki, then the plan of collecting tailed beasts and resurrecting the Jubi will be impossible. Seeing Obsidian acquiesce, Conan gritted her teeth. "I will kill you." Nagato also summoned his chakra, wanting to fight Obsidian to the death. Obsidian narrowed his eyes slightly. "Without the Rinnegan, you can't kill me." After that, his figure gradually vanished without a trace. Although Nagato didn't have the Rinnegan, he still has the terrifying physique of Uzumaki and Senju, coupled with the various powerful ninjutsu of the wood release, as well as the various sealing techniques of the Uzumaki clan. It won't be easy for Obsidian to defeat Nagato at this time. What's more, Nagato has Conan by his side, and Amatsukami may appear at any time. So Obsidian, who successfully stole Nagato's Rinnegan, didn't continue to fight and quickly retreated. After Obsidian left, Conan immediately supported Nagato. "Damn it, I didn't expect Sasori to betray us." Under normal circumstances, no one in the current shinobi world can dig out Nagato's Rinnegan. Even Hyojin, who crushed Nagato, can't do it. Because once Hyojin gets close to Nagato, Nagato will be highly vigilant, and with Nagato's terrifying physique, Hyojin won't have any chance to succeed. The reason why Obito was able to succeed was not because of the speed and strength of the Haruka puppet, but because of Nagato's trust in Sasori. He was not vigilant against the Haruka puppet. And this is precisely the most critical point. Because even if Uchiha Madara became the Jubi's Jinchuriki, officially stepped into the six-path level, and is very skillful in combat, because of a carelessness in the original time and space, he was killed by Obsidian Zetsu, who he trusted. This kind of thing is unavoidable for the real six-path level. Not to mention Nagato, who is not yet a six-path level, and even his mental state is still in a trance. Nagato shook his head at this time. No, Sasori should have fallen into Obsidian's trap. After losing his eyes, Nagato became more clear-headed, and his thinking became smoother. Kuroto knew that with Sasori's stubbornness, it was impossible for him to side with Obito. The only explanation was that Sasori was under Obito's illusion. This was also the reason why Sasori's true body didn't appear. Once Sasori's true body appeared, Kuroto, who had the Rinnegan, would immediately notice that Sasori was under Obito's illusion, so Obito only sent Hiriko puppets. And the Hiriko puppet is only a puppet that can be remotely controlled through the black stick. Whether Sasori is under the Genjutsu or not, he cannot judge through Sasori's puppet. It is this negligence that caused Nagato to lose the Rinnegan. Shaonin also came to a realization. He has been planning this rebellion for a long time. Even if we succeed, he will definitely make a move against you. Cough. Nagato, who coughed for a while, nodded and said hurriedly, "We must find Tendo immediately." Without the Rinnegan, Nagato also lost control of the 6 paths of pain, so he must retrieve Yahiko's body before Obsidian can control the Rinnegan. Yes, Conan nodded repeatedly. A moment later, under the guidance of Nagato, Conan took Nagato, who had lost his eyes, to find Tendo, who had withdrawn from the battlefield in advance. Because Nagato did not have the control of the Rinnegan eye, when he found Tendo, he was lying flat in the grass, almost no different from an ordinary corpse. Bang! When Conan threw the last black stick from the Tendo on the ground, the Tendo in the 6 paths of pain turned back into their best friend, Yahiko. Holding Yahiko's body in her arms, Conan looked at Nagato with worry. When he was defeated by the leader of Amitsukami, Nagato was a little depressed and lost. Now that he has lost the Rinnegan eye, she really doesn't know how to comfort him. As if feeling Conan's gaze, Nagato wiped the blood and tears on his face and said in a deep voice, "Don't worry, I won't be depressed anymore. Even if I don't have the ability to bring peace to the shinobi world, how can I sit back and ignore Yahiko's revenge? Whether it is Danzo or Obsidian, I will never let them go." Revenge for Yahiko has always been the Nagato's wish. The demigod Hanzo was personally beheaded by him, and because he didn't know that Danzo had been killed by Kuroto, he has been looking for Danzo all these years. Now, Obsidian has been added to the list of revenge. After pondering for a while, Conan said, "The previous base must be abandoned, whether Sasori betrayed us or was plotted against by Obsidian. With this example, I'm afraid we can't trust the other members." Nagato gently nodded and agreed with Conan's proposal. Although he still has good strength, after all, he has lost the Rinnegan eye, and his combat power is greatly reduced. If he is plotted against by Obsidian again, the consequences will be unimaginable. Thinking of the situation he will face in the future, Conan's face was full of worry. As the founders of the Akatsuki, they already have a deep hatred with the 5 great shinobi villages, and now they were betrayed by a member of the organization. Now the 2 of them can be said to be the enemy of the whole world. At this time, Nagato covered his face and said, "I need to find a pair of eyes first, no matter what kind of eyes it is, without vision. Even if it is the people of the 5 great shinobi villages, it will be difficult for me to deal with them." When Conan was about to nod, he suddenly thought of something. So he quickly put Yahiko's body aside, and then took out a storage scroll from a ninja bag around his waist. Release! With Conan's low shout, a burst of white smoke rose from the storage scroll, and when the white smoke dissipated, a small glass jar was revealed on the storage scroll, and inside the jar was a pair of Byakugan. This pair of Byakugan was taken from the eyes of the elder of the clan when Hyuga Aoki attacked and killed the elder of the clan. Later, this pair of Byakugan was installed on the special puppet that Sasori made for him, and then the puppet fell into the hands of Hyojin. And in order to rescue Naruto, Hyojin controlled the puppet to sneak into the Akatsuki's base, and after a battle with Nagato, although he managed to rescue Naruto, he lost the incomplete puppet in the Akatsuki's base. Naturally, the pair of Byakugan on the puppet fell into the hands of the Akatsuki. Nagato didn't care too much about this matter, but the Byakugan is very rare in the shinobi world, so Conan removed the Byakugan from the puppet and put it away. Listening to Conan's movement, Nagato also recalled, "Byakugan." Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. In addition, I would like to thank all the students who have tipped me in the past 2 days. Thank you all. Chapter 1114. Drip, drip, The light sound of water dripping echoed in the quiet cave. Suddenly, a twisted whirlpool appeared out of nowhere in the cave. Then, Obsidian, who was wearing the Akatsuki red cloud suit and a whirlpool mask, stepped out of the whirlpool. As Obsidian appeared, Ju silently poked half of his body out of the ground. As he sized up Obsidian, he smiled and said, "Looks like things are going well." The masked man nodded and said calmly, "He underestimated me too much." That Obsidian mentioned was undoubtedly referring to Nagato. From Obsidian's point of view, it was not easy to sneak attack Nagato when he was disabled. This was because Nagato was too vigilant at that time. Most of the time, he appeared as the heavenly axiom. Even Obsidian found it difficult to determine where his real body was hiding. As Nagato completely fused with the first-generation cells, his body had fully recovered and he was getting stronger. It was easier for Obsidian to find a chance to sneak attack. When he attacked this time, Nagato did not even dare to believe that he had the guts to do so. It could be seen that Nagato had indeed underestimated him. After getting an affirmative answer from Obsidian, Ju secretly heaved a sigh of relief. No matter what, sneak attacking Nagato was a very risky thing to do. Obsidian was able to succeed because of some luck. After poking his entire body out of the ground, Ju asked, "Did you hear that the leader of Akatsuki is not the Otsutsuki samurai on the moon?" Obsidian nodded slightly. "Yes, we were all played by him." Ju said thoughtfully, "He also brought up the concept of six-path level." Glancing at Ju, Obsidian asked, "Do you think he is telling the truth this time?" Ju shook his head and said in a deep voice, "It's hard to judge now, but my clone monitored the battle between him and Nagato. Nagato was not his opponent at all. He could even cause effective damage to the Outer Path Demon statue, so I believe what he said is true. He is indeed at a level beyond all of us." Under the mask, Obsidian's eyes were cold. "Is there really a six-path level?" Ju spread his hands. "Maybe. After all, Madara and Nagato can't do something like Truth-Seeking Ball. It is reasonable to use Truth-Seeking Ball to divide the level of power." At the thought of facing such a strong enemy in the future, Obsidian felt a little annoyed. He muttered, "If he is not Otsutsuki samurai, who is he?" Ju also fell into silence. The reason why everyone believes that Otsutsuki samurai is the leader of Amitsukami is that all the well-known experts in the shinobi world have been eliminated one by one. Only Otsutsuki samurai, who is of the same clan as the Sage of the Six Paths, is qualified to be the leader of Amitsukami. Now that they know that Otsutsuki samurai is not the leader of Amitsukami, whether it is the Akatsuki or the 5 great shinobi villages, they are all in a state of confusion. Zetsu, who knows almost everything about the shinobi world, is also in a deep state of confusion. He searched his mind, but couldn't think of anyone who fits the identity of the leader of Amitsukami. After a short silence, Obsidian waved his hand and said, "Let's not worry about that for now. The Rinnegan and the Jinchuriki have been successfully recovered. We can officially start the backup plan." Ju nodded and said, "Well, once you succeed, you should be able to enter the six-path level mentioned by the leader of Amitsukami." Obsidian asked, "How was the preparation going?" Ju smiled and made a hand seal, then lightly shouted, "Ha!" Rumble, with Ju's shout, for coffins rose from the ground, and then the lids of the coffins slid down one by one, revealing 4 figures with their eyes closed. There is no doubt that what Ju used is none other than the Edo Tensei technique developed by the second-generation Naruto. In fact, Mai and Orochimaru are not the only ones who have mastered the Edo Tensei technique in the shinobi world. Madara Uchiha, who was in his twilight years, stole this technique long ago and conducted in-depth research on it. This is also the reason why during the 4th Shinobi War, Uchiha Madara, who had the Edo form, was able to easily break the Edo Tensei Jutsu of the Edo Tensei. And Black Zetsu, who has been secretly monitoring Madara Uchiha and even disguised as Madara Uchiha's consciousness, naturally mastered this technique. The reason why Kuroda didn't use the Edo Tensei on Madara himself in the original time and space, but he borrowed Yakuza's hand was mainly because he didn't want to expose himself and arouse Madara's suspicion. It was precisely because of his forbearance and cunning that he finally waited for the opportunity to attack Madara Uchiha and killed Madara, who was considered the strongest in the shinobi world at that time. However, Black Jew could no longer endure it. The sudden appearance of God's organization had disrupted all of his plans, so he had no choice but to take the risk. Looking at the figures in the 4 coffins, Obsidian narrowed his eyes slightly. They are... Zetsu walked to the side of the coffins and pointed to the 2 coffins next to him. These are the Golden Horn and Silver Horn brothers of Cloud Village. They have pure Nine Tails chakra in their bodies, which is the best substitute for the Nine Tails' Jinchuriki. Obsidian nodded. Kuroto has heard of the Golden Horn and Silver Horn brothers of Kumo Village. After all, the second Hokage of Konoha died because of the rebellion they caused in Kumo Village, and they can be regarded as very famous figures in the shinobi world. Zetsu came to the other side and pointed to the 2 figures in the coffins and said, "They're the first Tails Jinchuriki of San Crypsis and the first 7 Tails Jinchuriki of Takunin Village." Obsidian said in a deep voice, "But there is no tailed beast in their bodies." Zetsu smiled and said, "Thanks to the blessing of Tobarama, the Edo Tensei technique developed by him has great potential beyond our imagination. As long as the sacrifice we prepare is strong enough, we can show most of the strength of the other party when they were alive. This also includes the tailed beast chakra. In fact, even the second-generation Naruto, as the developer of the Edo Tensei technique, may not fully understand the potential of the Edo Tensei technique. In the original space-time, the Edo Tensei technique even allowed Nagato, whose Rinnegan had been dug out, to regain the ability of the Rinnegan. Obviously, they have the same pair of Rinnegan, but Obsidian, Uchiha, and Nagato all have the Rinnegan at the same time. Itachi, who has given the Manjikyu Sharingan to Sasuke and fused it with the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, also regained the ability of his Manjikyu Sharingan. Not only can he perform the Manjikyu Sharingan techniques, such as Susankama, Amaterasu, and other Manjikyu Sharingan techniques, but he can also perform the forbidden technique Izanami, which consumes 1 Sharingan. The only explanation is that the Edo Tensei technique can reproduce the power of the soul of the dead according to the strength of the sacrifice, and part of the power of Nagato's Rinnegan and Itachi's Manjikyu Sharingan has been integrated into their souls, so their Edo body can regain these powers strangely, even though they obviously lost their Rinnegan and Manjikyu Sharingan. The first update is coming soon. The list will be updated. Please recommend and support it. It's just a small effort. Please, everyone. There will be a second update later. Chapter 11:15. In the face of Zetsu's boast, a trace of doubt flashed in Obsidian's eyes. In his opinion, if things can be so simple, they don't have to waste time and effort fighting with Amitsukami and the 5 great ninja villages to capture the Jinchuriki one by one. Seeing this, Zetsu no longer explained and directly printed, urging the first 7 Jinchuriki in the coffin. Creak. Under Ju's control, the 2 figures inside the coffin walked out one after the other. They staggered out of the coffin. Among them, the first one, the San Crypsis' Jinchuriki, is an old monk, thin and haggard. The first 7 Jinchuriki of Takanabin is an ordinary-looking middle-aged man. Obito took a few steps back and narrowed his eyes as he observed the 2 Jinchuriki's earth bodies. At this moment, the bodies of the first 7 Jinchuriki burst out with violent tailed beast chakra one after another. In an instant, these 2 tailed beast chakra filled the entire cave. Obsidian suddenly said, "Tailed beast chakra?" Zetsu stepped forward and explained, "I have to admit that Tobarama is a genius. His technique not only blurs the concept of life and death, but also distorts the power of the soul. We can squeeze the tailed beast chakra contained in the souls of these 2 predecessors, Jinchuriki, and barely replace the first and the 7th Jinchuriki. Facing the real existence of the tailed beast chakra in front of him, Obsidian nodded in surprise. He is not ignorant of the impure Earth Tensei technique. The Mist Squad who chased after Orochimaru reported to him that they encountered a mysterious enemy suspected to be the first and second generation Naruto in the land of Tion. At that time, he vaguely guessed that it might be related to the impure Earth Tensei technique. It was just that he didn't think that this impure Earth reincarnation technique would actually allow the previous human pillars to use the tailed beast chakra after losing their tailed beasts. In fact, in the original space-time, Medicine Master Do had once used the impure Earth reincarnation technique to resurrect the former eight-tailed Jinchuriki Bubby. As the former eight-tailed Jinchuriki Bubby with the impure Earth body, not only could he transform into a tailed beast, but he could also use the Jade-tailed beast technique, which greatly surprised the current eight-tailed Jinchuriki Bubby. 1 chakra, 7 chakra, and 9 tails chakra are all here, including the 5 human Jinchuras we captured earlier. We're only missing 3 tails. As if he had thought of something, the Obsidian's face sank, and he said sternly, "Don't tell me you attacked Lin." Ju smiled awkwardly. How is that possible? Ju really wanted to use the impure Earth reincarnation on Noera Lin. After all, Noera Lin was the former 3-tailed Jinchuriki Bubby. Once she used the impure Earth reincarnation, he could directly extract the chakra from her soul. However, considering Obsidian, he knew very well that if he really did that, he would probably be killed by Obsidian before he could extract the chakra from Noera Lin's soul. Obsidian's face softened a little, and then he said awkwardly, "What about the 3 tails? We don't have the ability to fight against Amitsukami now, so it's difficult to capture the Mizukage." Clap, clap. Ju gently clapped his hands. Soon, a white Zetsu doppelganger emerged from the ground and appeared in the cave. Obsidian recognized this white Zetsu doppelganger at a glance, and a look of realization appeared on his face. It turned out that this white Zetsu doppelganger was the doppelganger that had used the spore technique to absorb the chakra from 4 generations Mizukage Goji Berry Yagura. At this time, Ju explained, "Just in case I extracted the chakra of the tailed beast from the Mizukage. I thought it was just an unnecessary move, but I didn't expect that the Suijin would appear halfway and ruin our plan to capture the 3 tails." At this time, Obsidian was no longer concerned about the previous failure. Instead, he asked seriously, "Can we really resurrect the 10 tails in this way? Do we have any other choice?" After a sigh, Ju continued, "We have 5 complete tailed beasts in our hands. The Outer Path Demon statue that has been nourished by Nagato's Rinnegan chakra for more than 10 years. +1, 3, 7, and 9 tails chakra. I think it should be no problem to simply resurrect the 10 tails, but..." Obsidian asked eagerly, "But what?" Ju said, "Everything else is actually easy, but the loss of 9 tails has a great impact on the 10 tails. So even if we can resurrect the 10 tails, I'm afraid it will be difficult for the 10 tails to obtain their full power after resurrection, and their state may be too unstable." Obsidian nodded. "Well, 9 tails is indeed the most special tailed beast." Ju added, "So, in order to restore the true power of the 10 tails and keep the 10 tails stable, it is necessary to make up for the missing tailed beasts, especially the 9 tails." Understood. For Obsidian, Ju's backup plan of getting on a car first and then making up for the ticket was acceptable, or rather, this was the only way they could break out of the situation now. Because as long as the 10 tails were resurrected, he could use the Rinnegan seized from Nagato to become the 10 tails Jinchuriki. At that time, even if the 10 tails did not recover to its peak state, even if the 10 tails state was unstable, as the 10 tailed Jinchuriki, he should be able to step into the 6 paths level as mentioned by the leader of Amitsukami. And at that time, it would be easy to hunt the wild 1 tail, capture the 3 tails Jinchuriki, 7 tails Jinchuriki, and 9 tails Jinchuriki. Even if he faced the leader of Amitsukami, he might still be able to fight. After making up his mind, Obsidian asked, "Since everything is ready, When will we start resurrecting the 10 tails? Zhu looked at Obsidian. That depends on when you can adapt to the Rinnegan. Without the Rinnegan, we can't control the outer path golem. Obsidian frowned slightly. My body should be able to withstand the Rinnegan. It's hard to say. Although you have transplanted the first-generation Naruto's cells, your physique is not comparable to Nagato's. But we could try transplanting one Rinnegan first. In that case, your body should be able to withstand it, and the adaptation period will be shortened. Zhu put forward his suggestion. Obsidian nodded silently. The burden of bearing the Rinnegan could be seen from Nagato, who had not transplanted the first-generation cells. As a member of the Maelstrom race with amazing vitality, it was difficult for Nagato to bear the Rinnegan, so he was not arrogant enough to think that he could easily control a pair of Rinnegan. Looking at Obsidian's determined face, Zhu hid his face in the shadows of the cave, revealing a strange expression. In fact, he was not sure whether this backup plan could successfully resurrect the 10 tails, but in the face of the powerful leader of Amatsukami, he had no choice but to take the risk. The second update, Monday's leaderboard update. Please recommend it. Please, everyone. Also, thank you to the students who tipped yesterday. Thank you. Chapter 11:16. The Mayambu Base. In a huge secret meeting room, there was silence. Everyone was sighing or looking at each other. The atmosphere of the entire meeting room was solemn and depressing. Hyojin, who has changed his identity with Itachi, was also silently looking at the damage report in his hand. Although the battlefield this time is still in my village, but because of the previous emergency evacuation and Hyojin leading Nagato away from the village, the actual casualties are much less than expected. There is no doubt that this is due to the village's tactic of disguising the members of Amatsukami to delay the Akatsuki's offensive. It is precisely because of the efforts of the Jishue team that the village had enough time to evacuate the people, thus avoiding a large number of casualties. As for the buildings in the village, the damage is naturally inevitable. After all, the 5 Jinchuriki that were made into the 6 Paths of Pain by Nagato have all completely transformed into tailed beasts in the village, which is basically equivalent to 5 berserk-tailed beasts at the same time. Not to mention ordinary houses, even the ninja school, my hospital, and the Hyuga clan's territory were inevitably seriously damaged. Fortunately, the daimyo of the 5 major countries have also received the care of the Akatsuki, so when it comes to dealing with the Akatsuki, the daimyo are surprisingly unanimous, so the fund for the reconstruction of the village don't need to be a headache for Hyojin Naruto. Even the Rock, Cloud, and Sand Crypsis have expressed their support for the reconstruction of my village. Obviously, after this cooperation, the trust between the major villages has increased a bit. Moreover, the 3 generations Suchikage are also keenly aware that with my attracting the hatred of the Akatsuki organization, this is the best protection for their respective villages, so they are very active in supporting the reconstruction of my village. After putting down the report in his hand, Hyojin broke the silence. If you have anything to say, you can speak freely. 3 generations Suchikage said, we can support the reconstruction of my village, but my village should also open the channel of contact with Amatsukami to us. Not bad. 4 generations of Lei Ing and 4 generations of Kazekage agreed at the same time. After this war, the influence of Amatsukami in the shinobi world has increased a lot, and it has become a key factor that can determine the future direction of the shinobi world. Therefore, Suchikage, Lei Ing, and Kazekage are deeply worried about not being able to contact Amatsukami. Hyojin shrugged. I'm sorry. Although Mai has worked with Amatsukami several times, it was always Amatsukami who contacted us first. We have no way of contacting Amatsukami. 3 generations, Suchikage-sama suggested. Paying Amatsukami's reward is a good opportunity, so Rock Village will also participate. 4 generations, Lei Ing said in a muffled voice. Cloud Village is the same. 4 generations of Kazekage followed. Sand Crypsis also requests to participate. In the face of the strong proposal of the 3 Kages, Hyojin pretended to be in a difficult position and finally said, since everyone wants to participate, then the reward to Tsukimi. Without waiting for Hyojin to finish his words, 3 generations Tsuchikage laughed and said, "Rest assured, this is a war between the 5 great shinobi villages and Akatsuki. Tsukimi should be considered as being hired by the 5 great shinobi villages, so the reward should naturally be borne by the 5 great shinobi villages." 4 generations of Kazekage also laughed. That's right. If spending a sum of money can get in touch with Tsukimi, then even the relatively poor Sancrypsis will be willing to pay with both hands. After the meeting ended hastily, Hyojin and a group of my leaders returned to the Naruto building. Tsunade sneered. During the Chunin exam, I asked them to pay for the maintenance of the Forest of Death, but they all refused. This time, they are very active in paying tribute to Tsukimi. Ahem. After coughing twice, Koharu turned around and said sternly, "Tsunade, how can you say offering? We're cooperating with Tsukimi on equal terms. We're just paying them a fee." Tsunade curled her lips and said, "Let's talk about it behind closed doors. Why are you still saying such things?" Zhuan Xiaochun sighed helplessly. 3 generations of Naruto turned his head to the side. Jiraiya raised his head and looked at the sky. As Tsunade said, "As a ninja village, my village itself is a violent organization of the Land of Fire. So Mai's payment to Tsukimi is actually a protection fee." In this regard, whether it was Sandaime, Jiraiya, or even the stubborn and conservative reincarnation Kaharu, they were all well aware of this, but when Tsunade said it so directly, it made them feel a little embarrassed. Not long after, several high-ranking officials in the office discussed the summary of the battle against the Akatsuki and the specific problems of rebuilding the village. It has to be said that this time, in the face of the threat of the Akatsuki organization, the Uchiha clan has made a great contribution. Among the 3 Uchiha kaleidoscopes, Jishuei and Sasuke joined the team and made a major contribution to the relocation of the villagers, while the remaining one, Shinichi, also fought with the Hungry Ghost Path Chillabai in my hospital, saving many medical ninjas and injured people. Not to mention Jiraiya, who is willing to accept the Uchiha clan, even Zhuan Xiaochun and Tsunade, who have some prejudice against the Uchiha clan, praised the Uchiha clan this time. 3 generations of Naruto said, "Kuroto, it turns out that the strategy you used to deal with the Uchiha clan's rebellion was correct." Chapter 11:17. Looking at Hyojin's face, several people in the office guessed his mood. Tsunade said, "Kuroto, I went to your clan to check on Hayashi's injury. Although he lost the Byakugan, it was not life-threatening, and his mood is relatively stable. Most of the other clansmen also have some injuries, and they will recover after a period of rest." Jiraiya's face sank. "I didn't expect Otsutsuki Samurai to attack us at that time." Zhuan Xiaochun, who was in charge of intelligence collection, glanced at Hyojin. It is said that Otsutsuki Samurai mentioned a kind of Tenseigan when he dug out Hayashi's Byakugan. "Kuroto, you're also a Hyuga. Do you know anything about the Tenseigan mentioned by Otsutsuki Samurai?" In an instant, several people in the office turned their eyes to Hyojin. Hyojin shook his head naturally, but his face was still gloomy. He knew that there would be hidden dangers in using Otsutsuki Samurai this time, but he didn't expect Otsutsuki Samurai to act so decisively. He just escaped from the battlefield against Nagato and turned around to invade Mai and took away Hyuga Hayashi's Byakugan. It should be Nagato's strength that scared him. With Otsutsuki Samurai's arrogance, he even disregarded his identity and personally took action. This undoubtedly shows that Otsutsuki Samurai was really stimulated by Nagato's strength this time. Seeing Hyojin fall into silence, several people didn't ask anything more. From the Byakugan in Otsutsuki Samurai's eye sockets and the fact that Otsutsuki Samurai robbed Hayashi's Byakugan, people with discerning eyes can see that the Hyuga clan and the Otsutsuki clan on the moon are inextricably linked. It can even be speculated that the Hyuga clan, or to be more precise, the Hyuga clan, has some kind of secret that outsiders don't know. although Hyojin is also a member of the Hyuga clan. But because of his identity as a branch family, he obviously doesn't know these secrets hidden by the Hyuga clan, so the 3 generations didn't continue to ask. Jiraiya changed the subject. Unfortunately, we weren't able to save those human pillars this time. After all, they were dozens of miles away, and by the time the main army returned to the village from the battlefield, the 5 human Jinchuriki that Nagato had turned into the 6 paths of pain were long gone. The 3 generations took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "We need to come up with a plan to deal with the Jinchuriki as soon as possible." Zhuan Shaochun nodded. Who would have thought that the Akatsuki would turn the Jinchuriki into the 6 paths of pain? Not only did they give the Jinchuriki the abilities of the Rinnegan, but they also allowed them to transform into tailed beasts without any qualms. It can be said that these 6 paths of pain alone are enough to destroy all shinobi villages except for Mai, which is why people have to pay attention to them. Not only that, in order to pursue power, he also likes to use Sisu, Amaterasu, and Earth Life at the same time, these 3 Manjikyu Sharingan Jutsu. Every time he fights, the consumption of the pupillary powers is more than 3 to 4 times that of Itachi or Jishue Uchiha. Therefore, even if he is the reincarnation of Indra and the quality of Yin chakra in his body exceeds that of an ordinary Manjikyu Uchiha, he still can't withstand such consumption. Withdrawing his gaze, Hyojin didn't continue to say anything to Sasuke in front of everyone, but while walking out, he was thinking about how to fuse the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan for Sasuke. The strength that Nagato showed in this battle, as well as Otsutsuki Samurai's action of taking away Hayashi's Byakugan, made Hyojin consider speeding up the cultivation of Naruto and Sasuke. Moreover, after several dangerous actual battles, Sasuke's control of the Manjikyu Sharingan has also made great progress, so it's time to consider fusing the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 1119. As a reincarnation of Otsutsuki Indra, Sasuke had the qualification to open the Rinnegan, which had been confirmed in the original time and space, so there was no doubt. For Hyojin, the only problem now is how difficult it is for Sasuke to open the Rinnegan naturally. It must be known that Madara Uchiha, who is also the reincarnation of Indra, got the Manjikyu Sharingan and transplanted the Hashirama cells. It took him decades to awaken the Rinnegan. And as a reference, if Sasuke wants to awaken the Rinnegan, it obviously can't be solved by fusing the Manjikyu Sharingan and transplanting the Hashirama cells. Now I can only take one step at a time. Soon, Hyojin walked out of the hospital and stopped thinking. He doesn't have the ability to call out the Sage of the 6 Paths and give Naruto and Sasuke the power of the 6 Paths, so it's useless to think too much. And considering the special situation of Madara Uchiha, it may be easier for Sasuke to awaken the Rinnegan than Madara. After all, in the battle with the Hashirama in the Valley of the End, Madara used the blindness of an eternal Manjikyu Sharingan to use Izanagi to escape. At present, no one can judge how much the loss of an eternal Manjikyu Sharingan will affect the awakening of the Rinnegan. Therefore, Madara didn't awaken the Rinnegan until he was about to die. It is not ruled out that he lost an eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in the battle with the Hashirama. After everyone left the Mai hospital, the Kages separated from Hyojin and returned to the Umbu base. After the Kages left, 3 generations said, "Kuroto, you still have to pay attention to Haku. Maybe there will be unexpected gains." Obviously, 3 generations did not give up the clue of Haku, so he gave the task of tracking down the true identity of the leader of Amatsukami to Hyojin. Okay, Hyojin nodded. Jiraiya quickly said, "Kuroto, the Sound Ninja Village has helped us a lot this time, so the investigation method should be a little more gentle." Hyojin smiled and nodded. Meanwhile, in Haku's room, Kimimaro told him everything that happened after Haku fainted, especially the battle where the leader of Amatsukami crushed the leader of Akatsuki. After listening to Kimimaro, Haku said in disbelief, "Sixth path? Rank?" Kimimaro's expression was solemn. Yes, this is a concept that the leader of Amatsukami personally proposed. If we use this concept, the samsara level should be the boundary between mortals and immortals. Moreover, in the current shinobi world, only the leader of Amatsukami is a six-path shinobi, and others such as the leader of Akatsuki and Otsutsuki samurai haven't crossed this boundary. Miss Mirror is so strong, I thought to himself. At the same time, he was glad that he did not say anything. Kimimaro looked at Haku and lowered his voice. "Haku, do you really not know who the leader of Amatsukami is? Judging from your previous reaction, you must have discovered something." Haku shook his head and said, I really don't know. After confirming that Hyojin's strength has surpassed everyone in the shinobi world, and even Orochimaru is not Hyojin's opponent, Haku didn't dare to say anything. In his opinion, if Hyojin wanted to reveal his identity, he would have done so a long time ago. Since he didn't, it means that Hyojin still needs Amatsukami to do something. So he was afraid that he would say something wrong and bring disaster to himself and the entire village. After all, Amatsukami doesn't only have Hyojin alone. There are also Suijin, Homasubi, Kazuma, Xidagarba, and other strong people. Not to mention that he can't afford to offend them. Even Orochimaru can't afford to offend them. Anyway, Kuroto-sama is the disciple of Orochimaru-sama, so I shouldn't say anything about this matter. After dealing with the affairs of the village, Hyojin immediately rushed back to the Hyuga clan. Because Hyuga Hayashi's Byakugan was stolen, a large area of the clan was destroyed, and a large number of clansmen were injured. So at this time, the Hyuga clan was in a miserable state. Seeing Suijin dressed in the Hokage robe, Hizashi, who was directing the restoration of the clan grounds, hurriedly greeted him. "You are finally back. The patriarch is waiting for you in the mansion." In the mansion of the Hyuga clan, Hayashi, whose face was covered with gauze, sighed, and the remaining two elders of the Hyuga clan also looked at each other without saying anything, frowning. In recent years, the Hyuga clan has suffered one bad luck after another. First, the elder guarding the secret vault was attacked and killed by the traitor Hyuga Aoki, not to mention losing a pair of Byakugan. The clue about the giant Tenseigan in the secret vault was also obtained by the traitor Hyuga Aoki, causing the precious giant Tenseigan to be stolen. Not long ago, the traitor Hyuga Aoki took advantage of the rebellion of the Uchiha clan and attacked the Hyuga clan, killing another elder and taking away a pair of Byakugan. Today, even the patriarch's Byakugan was taken away. Losing two elders in succession, 3 pairs of Byakugan, it can be said that this is the heaviest blow the Hyuga clan has suffered in hundreds of years. At this time, Hyojin and Richa walked into the hall side by side. After seeing Hyojin, the two elders nodded to Hyojin a little awkwardly. In the past, they couldn't bear to see Kuroto's domineering attitude, but after the calamity that befell the Zone clan, they realized that Kuroto was the only one they could rely on the most. It was just that they didn't get along too well with each other, so they felt a little awkward. Hayashi also knew that Hyojin had come and said, "Kuroto, you should know what happened here in the clan land. My Byakugan was taken away by Otsutsuki samurai." Hyojin nodded. "Well, I heard about it." Hayashi nodded to Richa. After getting his brother's signal, Richa quickly said to Hyojin, "Next, I will tell you some family secrets. In fact, our Hyuga clan and the Otsutsuki clan on the moon are distant relatives. When I went out and got injured, I was actually invited by Otsutsuki samurai on the moon and met him in secret. If you hadn't met me, you would have died." Kuroto cursed inwardly as he listened to the conversation. Richa continued, "And the purpose of Otsutsuki samurai's appointment with us is actually to take away a treasure of our Hyuga clan called Giant Tenseigan." At this time, Hayashi took over the conversation and said solemnly to Hyojin, "Kuroto, I am now telling you the biggest secret of our Hyuga clan. That is, the Byakugan of our Hyuga clan is the same as the Sharingan of the Uchiha clan. it can continue to evolve, and the evolved eye is called the Tenseigan. Richa looked at Hyojin with fiery eyes, surprised. The second update, please ask for the monthly vote at the end of the month. In addition, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you, everyone. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.